Chapter 26. In the king's study. The king of Alabasta, Nefertari Cobra, was restless. Hasn't crocodile been found yet? The last time he appeared was in Katlia, where they rented a moving crab. The man who spoke was a man with long curly hair. He was a Karam, the captain of the Alabasta Kingdom Guard. At this time, the man looked very solemn. Crocodile was treated there. He was seriously injured. I'm afraid he failed in that battle. Could crocodile fail? Cobra frowned so hard that he could kill a fly. What kind of monster is this opponent? Crocodile was the most powerful man he had ever seen in his life. He was invincible in this desert. According to the survivors of rapeseed flower, it should be a boy. Akalam said, but unfortunately, when in Katlia, the boy was with crocodile. I'm afraid they have joined forces. What on earth do they want to do? Cobra scratched his head but couldn't figure out what this poor country was planning. And what was crocodile thinking? Why did he come to this country? Was the protection for so many years just a show? Before this, Cobra had never thought that crocodile would destroy a city so recklessly. Did you hear me? I'm asking you, what do you want to do? A teasing voice came from the side. Cobra turned his head in surprise and saw two figures slowly emerging from the shadows of the study room. Crocodile tore off his cloak. His face was still a little pale, and the thick bandages on his body could be vaguely seen through the gap in the cloak. Although this world has a high blood count per capita, it is not something that can be recovered from such a serious injury in just a few days. Crocodile. Akalam instantly stood in front of Cobra. Why are you here? Don't ask me this question. Crocodile snorted coldly. Ivan took off his cloak and said calmly, King of the Kingdom of Alabasta, I have a request that I hope you can satisfy. Shut up. You rude fellow. Akalam said angrily, you are talking to a noble king. Ha 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 ha, is it really okay to talk to this guy like this? Crocodile laughed gloatingly, as long as he wants, he can turn the entire palace into hell in an instant. Akalam then remembered that this boy had a high probability of defeating Crocodile. All right, Akalam. At this time, Cobra gently pushed Akalam aside, walked up to Ivan and said, Young man, why are you here? I have no ill intentions, I just want something. Ivan said, strictly speaking, you should thank me, otherwise sooner or later, Alabasta will be turned upside down by Crocodile. Ha ha ha. That's right, thank him. Crocodile was not ashamed, but laughed, but don't worry, I've given up. What is this guy planning? Akalam stared at Crocodile. He didn't think the man's words were credible. So, young man, what do you want? Cobra looked at Ivan. A letter. Ivan said. What? Crocodile looked confused. A letter? What the hell? Isn't it for Pluto? What? Cobra's face also changed drastically, he could hardly believe it. Crocodile realized that something was wrong in an instant. Why did Cobra react so strongly? Wait. If this kid didn't know about Pluto in advance, then why did he come to Alabasta? This country still hides secrets that he doesn't even know about? Without waiting for Cobra to answer, Ivan continued, 800 years ago, Nefertiti, who was supposed to lead his family to Marijoa to become a celestial dragon Queen Lily declined the invitation, left a letter to her brother and disappeared. I'm curious about what's in this letter, so can you show it to me, Cobra? Nefertiti Lily? Celestial dragons? What on earth is this? Crocodile felt a little confused. This was completely different from what he expected. Cobra couldn't believe that he would hear these words from the mouth of the boy in front of him. How did you know this? This should be a secret passed down from generation to generation in their family. Is it true? Crocodile narrowed his eyes. No wonder the Nefertiluri family, or the Nefert family, knew the secret about Hades. They almost became celestial dragons. I learned it by chance. Ivan explained casually, so, Cobra, what is your answer? Cobra was silent. To be honest, he was also a little confused about the content of the letter. Ha ha ha, I advise you to agree to him, Cobra. Crocodile said jokingly, otherwise, what will happen next is definitely something you don't want to see. Cobra took a deep breath. He finally nodded slightly, come with me. Your Majesty. Akalam looked at Cobra unwillingly. It doesn't matter, it's not something precious. Cobra shook his head. Ivan was not surprised at all. Lead the way. The decent characters in this world are very easy to be threatened. As long as you grasp their weaknesses, you can basically make a success of the threat, and they basically won't think of doing anything secretly. Cobra opened the door of the study and walked out. He took Ivan and Crocodile to the depths of the palace. Soon, they came to the outside of a treasure house. After waving his hand to send the guards away, Cobra led the two into the treasure house. There were a lot of treasures stored in it. But neither Ivan nor Crocodile were interested in these things. Cobra searched in the treasure house and found a locked treasure chest. When he took out the key to open the treasure chest, he took out a well-preserved letter. This is the letter Lily left behind. Cobra carefully handed the letter to Ivan. To be honest, we are also confused about what it says. Ivan took it without hesitation, took out the letter from the envelope and unfolded it. Crocodile quietly moved behind Ivan. He was much taller than Ivan and could clearly see the contents of the letter. We have been deceived. The criminal is Naranayim. The opening sentence is the theme. Ivan continued to read. We were wrong from the very beginning. Those we always thought were our enemies were never our enemies, and those we always thought were our friends were never our friends. We who thought we were righteous have put the world in a terrible situation. But now it is too late to save the world. That country has been completely destroyed. The power that I'm has is unmatched. I'm going to find a remedy. Brother, stay in Alabasta and don't go to Marijoa. That's a conspiracy. The first part of the information is the most useful, and the latter part is basically a sister's advice to her brother. Ivan looked at the letter for a long time. So, this is the letter that Queen Lily left for her brother during the blank 100 years. Crocodile had also finished reading the letter, and he was confused. So what happened back then? That I'm is the ancestor of the celestial dragons? He deceived Lily and someone else? To defeat a certain country? And thus established the world government. We also guessed so. Cobra nodded, but there is really no other content, and no one knows what happened specifically. Ivan stuffed the letter into the envelope and handed it back to Cobra. So, now combined with the known information, we can make some guesses. Chapter 27. It is still unclear what happened 800 years ago. But the outline of the story can be guessed. According to O'Hara's research, there was a huge kingdom 800 years ago. It was a prosperous and powerful country. Ivan didn't know the specific name. Dr. Clover, who knew the name, had decided to launch a demon-killing order against O'Hara before he said it. But the name is not important. As for the power held by this kingdom, it is probably the power of technology. As a basis, it is the giant robot on Egghead Island 900 years ago. It attacked Marijoa 200 years ago. Ivan guessed that it was probably the legacy of that huge kingdom. Vegapunk said that Egghead Island is not an island of the future, but an island of the past, and what remains on it is technology from the distant past. Probably, it refers to that country. And this country was destroyed. It was destroyed by Im. He deceived Lily and others through deception, or some kings who became celestial dragons at that time, integrated these forces to defeat the huge kingdom, and most likely took over the legacy of the huge kingdom. And the person who confronted Im should be Joy Boy. It is not clear what he did specifically, but since the sun god Nika is known as a warrior of liberation, it must be related to liberation. Since the warrior of liberation is most likely fighting on behalf of that kingdom, it can be imagined that the kingdom not only has advanced technology, but also advanced ideas. So, how did such a kingdom come into being out of thin air? Combined with the murals that Enel saw in the ruins of Pika on the moon, Ivan guessed that it was probably the Pika people who brought unprecedented technology and ideas to the sea. After the destruction of the huge kingdom, Lily noticed Im's conspiracy, but it was too late to save the situation. All she could do was leave Alabasta and find a remedy. Im guessed that it was Lily who single-handedly promoted the spread of the historical text. So maybe Lily went to Wano country? Then maybe she had returned to Alabasta once and sent back the stone that recorded the whereabouts of Pluto. However, no one knows what she did before and what she did after. It should be a story like this, right? Ivan thought. Thank you very much, King Cobra. Ivan sincerely thanked Cobra. No, it's nothing. Cobra shook his head, it's not a big deal. In return, King Cobra. Ivan said seriously, this letter and its contents must not be made known to the government, otherwise, you and this country may face a catastrophe. What? Cobra's face suddenly changed, is it really that serious? Because it involves a blank 100 years. Crocodile asked. Ivan nodded gently. Who would have thought that the conspirator who won in the end, Narana Im, is still alive today? If he didn't have Alzheimer's disease, he would never have forgotten these things. I understand. Cobra nodded deeply. Ivan looked at Crocodile again. Of course, it doesn't matter to you. You can spread it all over the world, but don't forget, don't expose Alabasta. The Nefertari family didn't provoke Ivan, and Ivan had no intention of causing trouble for them. Humph. Crocodile just snorted, as if he was thinking of something. I'm leaving. Having finished reading the letter, Ivan had no intention of staying any longer. After hearing this, Cobra subconsciously asked, Are you in such a hurry? Ivan looked at him strangely, Are you still planning to host a banquet for us? Cobra was silent. Ivan wanted to laugh, and he obviously wanted his confidant to leave quickly, but he still had to be polite. Goo ha 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 ha. Crocodile laughed without hesitation. Daddy. When we walked out of the treasure house, a cheerful voice rang out, and a little girl with blue hair ran over from the corner of the corridor and threw herself into Cobra's arms. This child is clamoring to see his father. Following the little girl was a gentle woman with blue hair. She looked at Ivan and Crocodile following behind Cobra with some surprise. When she saw Crocodile, her pupils shrank slightly, but her expression did not change. Are there any guests? Then I'll take Vivi to avoid them first. The princess of the kingdom of Alabasta, Nefertari Coco, nodded calmly to Ivan and the others. The little girl who had buried her head in Cobra's arms looked up curiously, her clear big eyes looking up at Ivan. The little girl didn't know what was good looking and ugly yet, she just looked at this big brother subconsciously. Ivan looked down at the little princess. This child is only 4 years old this year, right? She's quite cute. Their eyes met, and the little girl smiled happily at Ivan. Ivan's mouth curled slightly. Children are the happiest and most carefree. The older they grow, the more troubles they have. This child should thank herself, right? Otherwise, she will start to experience pain in another 10 years. No, come with me to see them off. Cobra hugged his daughter and said gently, Wei, can you come with Daddy to see the guests off? Yes. Although she was only 4 years old, the little princess was already quite sensible. She nodded happily and did not act unreasonable at all. Ivan refused. He summoned 2 ninjas to take him and Crocodile and disappeared into the shadows. Disappeared. Princess Coco couldn't hide her astonishment. They are even scarier when they appear. Cobra said with a wry smile. Is that Crocodile? And who is that boy? Coco asked anxiously, why are they here? I don't understand it either. Cobra shook his head and was silent for a moment. Anyway, just pretend that this incident never happened and don't tell anyone else. The little princess in his arms looked up at her father in confusion. Seeing that her father was no longer smiling, she quickly reached out to pull the corner of her father's mouth. Dad! Smile! Good. Cobra looked at his lovely daughter and laughed heartily. Later, outside Albina. On the back of a moving crab flying in the desert. Where are you going next? Crocodile asked. It has nothing to do with you. Ivan sat on the crab's broad back and said lightly, just don't forget our agreement. Don't talk nonsense, if you dare to do it, why shouldn't I dare to do it? Crocodile sneered, rather, isn't that a very interesting sight? Goo ha 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 ha. You are not only a lunatic, but also a genius. I'm waiting for your signal. He paused, but, are you really not interested in Pluto? Although he is not interested now, Ivan's performance makes him feel frustrated. If you work harder in your future actions, I can even tell you where Pluto is. Ivan said lightly. But I'm afraid you don't have the ability to compete with Kaido. What? Crocodile turned his head in astonishment. This kid knows the whereabouts of Hades? Is he bragging, or is it true? Who is he? Ivan didn't say anything. He just looked at the endless desert quietly. The next destination is Upside Down Mountain. After crossing it, you can reach the West Sea. It took a few more days for Ivan to arrive at a port city. Crocodile parted ways with him halfway. He was going back to his old nest, Rainland, to sort out his property. Then he would return to the new world. The sand crocodile of that year was going to fight back again. Ivan found a ship to the Great the merchant ship at the mouth of the route set out with the ship. The ship will turn around at the Twin Straits, and sail into other waterways of the paradise through the recording pointer to do business in another country. It can be said that it is just along the way. About 2 weeks after the voyage, a news bird flew to the ship. Yvonne spent 100 baileys to buy a newspaper. The spread of information in this world basically depends on these news birds. Yvonne would buy a newspaper every time he met one, as a way to increase his understanding of the world. But this time, after opening the newspaper, the content on the front page instantly made Ivan's eyes widen. The front page news is like this. Marijoa is attacked again. Chapter 28. The newspaper included a photo of lightning flashing over Marijoa. In the middle of the lightning, one could vaguely see a figure with lightning flashing. Looking at the photo, Ivan's mouth curled up instantly. Not only that, Yvonne also found a piece of paper in a pile of newspapers. It was a wanted poster. The wanted poster showed a man with a turban and long ears. It was Enelu. And his bounty was 500 million berries. Looks like he's still alive and well? Well done, Enelu, I spared your life for what it's worth. Ivan's smile gradually became brighter. An unexpected surprise. Almost at the same time, on an island in the New World estuary. Damn it! Enel was wrapped in thick bandages, lying on a bed. What's wrong with those guys? How did they hurt me? After recovering from his injuries on Gaia Island, Enelu did not return to Bika Island. Of course, it was not because he was afraid that the bastard kid had not left yet, but Enelu decided to punish those guys who dared to overstep their boundaries and call themselves gods before returning. Celestial dragons. There are such ignorant dogs in the world. God is his exclusive title, and they are worthy of being called gods? Enelu was furious about this. He forced a group of pirates to take him to the Sabayati archipelago, and after determining the location of Marijoa, he immediately went to the gathering place of the celestial dragons alone. After turning into lightning and arriving above Marijoa, the sounds coming from all directions made Enelu feel sick and want to vomit. Countless screams came from everywhere, which made Enelu, who was good at seeing, hearing and listening, unbearable. Almost without hesitation, Enelu started the destruction work directly. There was no need to even aim, the violent thunder directly hit the buildings below. In just a few breaths, a large area of the area had been turned into a sea of fire by Enel. But that was the time for Enel to be arrogant. A man suddenly appeared in the sky, stepping on the air, and attacked Enel. Enel wanted to use his elemental body to fight this man as before. But unfortunately, just like the previous battle with the young man with golden thunder, the elementalization completely lost its effect, and Enel was beaten badly. Enel's body, which had just recovered, suffered a severe blow again. After just a few punches, Enel was almost knocked unconscious. Fortunately, he reacted quickly and immediately turned into an element and escaped with the speed of thunder, otherwise he would have turned into a dry skeleton in Marijoa. What Enel didn't know was that he had already run to the New World after running around like a headless fly. He stopped on an island, found the most luxurious house, controlled everyone in it, and asked them to find a doctor for him. Now he can finally feel a little more at ease. What exactly is that power? Enelu bit his fingernails. Why can't it ignore the elementalization of the god? He remembered the black on the fist of the man who hit him hard. Is that the power of the devil fruit? Then, it should be Haki, right? At this time, the owner of the house who was coerced by Enelu said cautiously, Haki is the power used to fight against people with special abilities, and the armament Haki has the power to touch the entities of people with special abilities. Haki. Enelu was suddenly shocked. Is it a kind of devil fruit? No, the owner of the house was terrified just to answer. After all, the man in front of him was a madman who dared to attack Marijoa and even caused the death of the celestial dragons. That is a power that can be learned. Where can I learn it? Enel's eyes flashed. Wait, that little lightning devil, and those bastards from Marijoa. When I learn Haki, I'll show you what I can do. On Ivan's side, the journey is still going on. What Enel did cause quite a storm at sea. The World Economic News reported on it for several days. The newspaper said that some celestial dragons died in his attack, and the government called him a dangerous person on par with Fisher Tiger, declaring that the government and the navy would never let them go unpunished. Yvonne wanted to laugh at this. Is Enel worthy of being compared with Tiger? But at least he killed some celestial dragons, so he made a contribution. I hope he will continue to work hard next time. As for the possibility that Enel might turn against him, Yvonne never thought about it. If even a guy of Enel's level is afraid, then what's the point of being an enemy of the world government? The merchant ship continued to move forward, and after today it docked at an icy island. This is the Drum Kingdom, a famous medical power on the Grand Line. Although the country is not big, and there are not many towns in the country, but only villages scattered in the snow, it is such a poor and backward country that has produced the most top doctors in the world. Ivan did not land. During this period of time, Walpole should not have become king yet, and Chopper was only 3 years old, and he probably had not been driven out of the deer herd yet. There is really nothing to land. Although Walpole's ability is indeed extraordinary, he is not needed for the time being. Come back when you need him in the future. After passing the Drum Kingdom, the ship no longer landed on any island and went straight to the direction of the upside-down mountain. After all, in front, neither the Little Garden nor the Whiskey Peak is a place to do business. The Little Garden is still in the ancient times, and the Whiskey Peak is full of bounty hunters and is quite dangerous. So, after a few weeks, a huge red mountain that towered into the clouds finally appeared in Ivan's sight. That is the upside-down mountain, the starting point of the Great Route, and the beginning of the adventure. The weather is very good today, with no clouds in the sky. So you can clearly see a canal flowing down from the top of the extremely distant mountain. Ships from all over the world enter this canal at the top of Upside Down Mountain and then enter the Great Route. Merchant ships stop at the coast at the end of the canal. There is a lighthouse on the coast. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Any new goods? A man with flowers on his head walked out of the lighthouse and headed towards the merchant ship. Ivan looked at him. The former doctor of Roger's pirates, Crocus. After the Roger pirates disbanded, Crocus returned here and has lived alone for another 11 years. This lighthouse is isolated from the world, and all supplies basically rely on the merchant ships that occasionally pass by. After Crocus made a lot of purchases, the merchant ship did not stay for long and left soon. They were going to enter another route from here. But Crocus found that there was a guy who did not leave with him. Mr. Kurikas. Ivan greeted the man. Lelito, I say hello to you. Rayleigh. Chapter 29. On the coast of the lighthouse, Ivan and Kulokas sat at a small table with a few side dishes on it. Of course, they were not cooked by Ivan. After all, he was a guest from afar, so Kulokas was not so rude. After all, he was an old otaku who had lived alone for decades. Kulokas personally cooked a few side dishes, and the old and the young chatted while eating. Rayleigh has accepted another apprentice. Kurikas looked at Ivan. I thought he can't do anything except drinking. Is that guy okay? I should say it was okay. Ivan said with a smile, it was just that Xiaoqi didn't give him wine to drink, and sometimes he sold himself to the slave trade to pay for the wine. Does that guy really want to retire? Kurikas was speechless. The Navy actually turned a blind eye to him. The Roger pirates have been disbanded, so don't let them reappear. Ivan said, the government and the Navy should think so. Let's not talk about whether Rayleigh is easy to catch or not. If they really want to do something to Rayleigh, what should they do if all the secluded members of the Roger pirates run out again? The Roger pirates have arrived at the final island. They know the secrets hidden by the government. What if they leak it out? Although they don't know why they didn't leak the secret, the government doesn't want to cause trouble. Ha ha ha, that's true. Crocus said with some pride, when we were sailing on the sea, everyone was afraid of us as if we were demons. Roger is not a good man in the general sense. He is indeed loyal to his friends and partners. But under normal circumstances, he is indeed a wanton pirate. He is a dangerous man who can destroy an entire country's army in one breath just because his partner was insulted. Whitebeard is much gentler than him. However, our time has passed. Crouchus looked at Ivan with admiration. Now it's the time for you young people. He was not completely incompetent in fighting, and he had sailed with the Pirate King for several years, so he had a good eye. How could he not see that Ivan was extraordinary? Rayleigh, you have taught an extraordinary disciple. This kid is just like Shanks and Buggy, he is the future of this ocean. Where are you going this time? Kurikas asked curiously. After all, this kid didn't come to Twin Gorge from the Four Seas, but came back from the Grand Line. I'm going to go to the West Sea. Ivan said, I'm going to cross from the Red Earth continent. What? Kurikas was stunned. Are you serious, Ivan? You want to cross the Red Soil continent with your own legs? The Red Soil continent is a high wall surrounding the world, with an average altitude of several thousand meters. But it is not just high. The name of the red soil continent is not exaggerated at all. The width of the red soil continent is more than 1,000 kilometers at the narrowest place, and several thousand kilometers at the widest place. Although the upside-down mountain is considered narrow, it is not easy to cross it. Because it's closer this way. Ivan said lightly. Kurikas couldn't help but marvel in his heart. Although there should be huge differences in personality, but the only thing that is so similar to Captain Roger is his willfulness. Kurikas couldn't help but laugh. Then you have to bring enough supplies. It's been prepared a long time ago. It was purchased in Alabasta and placed in the Shadow World for the ninjas to take with them. Although the ninjas are constantly consuming their physical strength, with their current physical fitness, this consumption is not enough to keep up with the recovery. Go ahead, Ivan. Kulokas encouraged. Young man, you should go to the sea and do what you want to do. Ang. A long cry suddenly sounded from the sea nearby. A huge whale suddenly splashed out of the water and roared at the sky. Then, it suddenly crashed into the towering red earth continent. Boom! The rock wall was broken, blood splattered. The ground on the lighthouse side was shaking slightly. Lebo. Kurikas stood up. Is it starting again? Ivan looked at the whale that kept hitting the red earth continent. Lebo? It's waiting for someone. Very abruptly, Crocus began to tell the story of Lebo. The Rumba pirates who left Lebo here more than 30 years ago, and the promise. They must have been wiped out in a corner of the Grand Line, right? Crocus sighed. When I joined Roger's pirate group, I also wanted to find them, but now it seems that I will never come back. Ivan thought about it, drew his sword and carved a pattern on the ground. Rumba pirates? I have heard of their flag. Is it like this? Fortunately, I was quite bored in my previous life, and I memorized the flags of many pirate groups. That's it. Crocus was a little surprised. Ivan, you actually know them? That was a pirate group from more than 30 years ago, and they weren't very famous. I just heard of it by chance. After all, it's quite rare to have a pirate group composed entirely of musicians. Speaking of the Rumba pirates, I think I saw their ship when I passed by the magic triangle. What? Kurikas grabbed Ivan's shoulders instantly. Ivan, are you serious? Yeah. Ivan nodded gently. It's already tattered, as if it has been drifting for a long time. Kurikas looked depressed. So, it's really gone. But there is a skull with an afro on the deck. Ivan added, I don't know why he's still alive, but he's still playing the piano and singing. The people on the ship I was on said it was a ghost ship, so we left quickly. Afro. Crocus was incredulous. Brook. Is that Brook? He is the user of the superhuman Yomiri fruit. He is still alive. Of course he is still alive. Great, Ivan. This is great. This is the best news I have heard in 10 years. Kurikas hugged Ivan excitedly and ran towards the coast. Labo. Hey. Labo. Stop. Kulokas shouted, Brook is still alive. He is trapped somewhere in the sea. Let's go save him now. The big whale that was madly hitting the red earth continent suddenly stopped. It turned around, lowered its body, and looked straight at Kulokas with its huge eyes. Ivan didn't understand what it meant. But Kulokas understood. It's true. He pointed at Ivan. That's the news brought by that boy. Brook is in a sea area ahead. Hey. Lab. Let's go save him. He's waiting for us. Ah. The whale screamed to the sky, tears streaming down. Ivan watched this scene. What will the future be like? It was just a short period of time at sea, and the plot had been changed so much by him. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what other people do. What matters is what I want to do. Chapter 30. Well, let's say goodbye here, Ivan. Kulokas said goodbye to Ivan, carrying a lot of bags on his back. I will go to the Sabayati archipelago to meet Rayleigh to reminisce about the past. Is it okay? Ivan looked at Kurikas, then at the impatient giant whale on the sea. There will be many dangers along the way. No problem, no problem. Crocus waved his hands again and again. Don't underestimate me. I'm also a member of Roger's pirate group. Moreover. He chuckled and jumped directly onto the whale's back. He trotted all the way and suddenly opened a door at one place. Lab often crashes into the red earth continent. In order to treat him, I simply transformed him and designed passages and rooms in his body. I'll just stay here and direct Lab to move forward. Ivan was speechless. Is he really a doctor? So, go ahead, Ivan. Kurikas stood on the back of the whale and shouted to Ivan, just do what you want to do. Don't hesitate, don't back down. Young people should move forward courageously. Have a nice trip, Crocus. Ivan waved goodbye to the old man. Maybe we'll meet again in the Sabayati archipelago. Let's go. Lebu. Kurikas got into the belly of the whale and closed the door from the inside. Soon, Lebu the whale let out a long cry to the sky again, then dived into the water, bringing up waves all over the sky. Well, it's time for me to set off too. Ivan turned his head and looked at the towering red earth continent. His breathing became more frequent, lightning flashed, and the next moment, Ivan had turned into a ray of lightning and rushed towards the red earth continent. It is not difficult to climb the red earth continent. Ivan went upstream along the canal, heading towards the top of the upside-down mountain. This is not a very short journey. Although the Straw Hat Pirates completed this journey quickly in the original work, the actual situation is that the length of the canal is incredibly long, and it is calculated to be thousands of kilometers. It took Ivan 2 days to finally reach the top of the upside-down mountain. Of course, he couldn't keep going all the time. He had to keep running at full speed and always had to stop to recover his strength. At these times, he often summoned ninjas to carry him forward. Upside-down Mountain should be the highest mountain in the world. Standing here and looking around, you can see all 6 oceans in the world. The East Sea, the West Sea, the South Sea, the North Sea, Paradise, and the New World. At the top of this mountain, you can also see a very magnificent view. The 4 canals that flow upstream from the 4 seas of Southeast, Northwest, and Northeast meet here. The collision brought waves all over the sky, and then the 4 canals merged into one, eventually forming the canal that flows to Paradise. A wonder of the world. Ivan stood on the top of this mountain, and couldn't help but feel sincere amazement at the wonders of this world. After staying here for a while, Ivan went down the canal from the West Sea, and further ahead was the West Sea. West Sea, West Island. The status of this island in the West Sea is similar to that of Rogue Town in the East Sea. Of course, this does not mean that a pirate king has been executed here. The similarity is in the geographical location. West Island is located not far from the entrance of the West Sea Canal. It is the gateway to the West Sea Canal. Whether it is pirates or merchants, or even the Navy World Government, if they want to go from the West Sea to the Grand Line, they will most likely pass through here. Therefore, it is natural that the Navy has sent heavy troops to guard here, and a colonel of the Navy headquarters is stationed here. The purpose is of course to prevent pirates who want to enter the Grand Line. However, these things have nothing to do with Ivan. He rushed down the canal and naturally came to this island. Now he is going to find a merchant ship to the Kingdom of Flowers. Although the natural conditions in the 4 seas are much more normal than those in the Grand Line, Ivan finds it more inconvenient for sailing. After all, in the Grand Line, you only need to follow the pointer, and the pointer will automatically indicate the direction. But in the 4 seas, the magnetic field is normal, and neither the permanent pointer nor the recording pointer is useful. It is far from enough to rely on ordinary compass charts. Navigators often need to use astronomical navigation, visual judgment, auditory judgment, measurement, and calculation and other means to determine the position and set the route. Ivan felt that he was not good enough. He had to find a merchant ship. However, when Ivan was looking for a ship at the dock, the Navy suddenly appeared and blocked the entire port. This behavior instantly caused an uproar in the entire port. Silence! A man wearing a justice coat and colonel's epaulets on his shoulders strode over. We have received news that criminals have sneaked into the port. Please don't act rashly and cooperate with the Navy's search. If there is any unusual movement, he sneered, I will regard you as accomplices of the criminal. So the port was instantly quiet. Everyone knew that even though Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom dominated the New World, the Navy was the real overlord of this ocean. Ivan mixed in the crowd with an unchanged expression. He didn't care. The Navy couldn't be looking for him. He hadn't done anything yet. The Navy began a strict search. Every store and every ship in the port were strictly searched. The Navy soldiers with live ammunition did not let go of any corner. Every person in the port had to be confirmed by the Navy. However, it was a pity that the Navy did not find anything. What happened? Did the reporter make a mistake? The Navy captain frowned. Was it a wasted trip? He thought, if he didn't find anything, he couldn't shut down the entire port. But he couldn't be so sure that it was just a mistake. Keep an eye on the port. Especially the ships heading to the Grand Line. Retreat, the Navy captain shouted. The Navy retreated. Everyone in the port breathed a sigh of relief. If they were accidentally involved in the battle between the Navy and the pirates, no one would compensate them for their losses. Ivan didn't care about this episode. He soon found a merchant ship heading to the waters near the Kingdom of Flowers. After paying to board the ship, the merchant ship set sail that night. But that night, when Ivan was about to go to bed, there was a rustling sound outside the porthole, as if something was climbing up the hull. Ordinary people may not notice it, but Ivan's senses are far more sensitive than ordinary people. Ivan raised his eyebrows, his face became even weirder when he saw the color of observation. He stood up, opened the window and looked down. He happened to meet the eyes of a girl. Long black hair, dark green eyes. Could it be that I met an acquaintance again? Chapter 31. Nico Robin had another unlucky day. She has been wandering in the West Sea for 8 years since O'Hara was destroyed by the Navy's demon-killing order. During these 8 years, Nico Robin fully experienced the cruelest malice of human beings. Although they didn't know each other, for her bounty of 79 million Baileys, no matter it was the kind-hearted grandfather or the gentle and friendly big sister, everyone could betray her without hesitation. Robin gradually learned to betray. No longer trust anyone, use anyone who can be used, everything is just to survive. This year, she is 16 years old. This time she came to West Island to go to the Grand Line. Robin's dream is to find the historical texts that record the truth of the blank 100 years of history, but most of those precious stones are distributed in the Grand Line. So after turning 16, Robin decided to go to the Grand Line. However, just after arriving on the island, before she had time to find a ship to the Grand Line, her whereabouts had been discovered, and she had no choice but to choose to hide. She put herself in a wooden barrel, and then tied it to the hull of a ship with a rope. The barrel sank into the sea, and she barely avoided the Navy's search. Because Robin's ability can summon part of her limbs anywhere, so even if she is trapped in the barrel, she can observe the situation outside. After the ship set sail and was completely away from West Island, Robin activated her ability again, creating arms on the hull, pulling the barrel out of the sea with the rope, opening the barrel lid, and freeing herself. From now on, she can only lurk on this ship temporarily. Robin thought so while creating arms to pass herself to the deck. At this time, the cabin window above opened, and a young man poked his head out from above. Discovered. Robin's heart trembled instantly. She crossed her arms in front of her chest without hesitation. 2 rounds of flowers are blooming. 2 slender arms suddenly grew out of the boy's shoulders, grabbed his chin and twisted it back with force. Robin didn't want to kill anyone, especially a stranger. She just wanted to knock the boy out. But it's okay, she will live in this boy's room for the next period of time, but she will have to wrong him for a while. But, it didn't move. The limbs created by Robin's ability shared her senses, and she felt that the 2 arms were like being bent on steel, and couldn't shake him at all. The ability that was invincible suddenly didn't work, and Robin's heart suddenly panicked. At this moment, the boy reached out, grabbed Robin's shoulder, and pulled Robin into the window. It was because Robin was relatively slender, otherwise the not-so-wide porthole would not allow her to pass smoothly. Damn it! Robin was panicked. Nicole Robin, right? Yvonne said confidently, looking at the girl he threw to the ground. It is impossible to confirm it completely just by looking at her appearance, but with this special fruit ability, it is certain. The girl in front of him is Nicole Robin, the last survivor of O'Hara. What a coincidence, the West Sea is so vast, and I actually met her as soon as I arrived. This is a complete surprise. Originally, if I wanted to unravel the truth of history, I couldn't do without her help. Recognized. Robin's heart trembled. After a brief panic, she calmed down now. The situation is not good now. This man is definitely not an ordinary person, and he recognized her. What should I do? How should I get out now? Robin's thoughts raced. What is the weakness of this man? I have some questions for you. Yvonne said seriously. Does Robin know about O'Hara's research results on the historical text? Does she know the actual situation of the ancient kingdom? Yvonne couldn't wait. Then he saw the beautiful girl with her hands crossed on her chest. 2 rounds of flowers blooming. Yvonne lowered his head, and 2 arms grew between his legs. No way. Even Yvonne was stunned for a moment. It was during this moment that Robin's eyes turned fierce. Grab! She clenched her fists suddenly, and the two arms that grew out of Ivan's body clenched at the same time. Ivan's eyelids twitched. The next moment, Robin's face suddenly turned pale. So hard. It's as hard as steel. Isn't this the biggest weakness of all men? Why can't I shake him at all? Could it be that even this place can be trained? Robin, who was touched by the blind spot of knowledge, couldn't help but reveal a dazed look. That's enough. Ivan's mouth twitched. If he hadn't used the armament haki in time, he would have been seriously injured. He has always been a very calm person, and rarely loses control of his emotions, but just now, he almost subconsciously shouted, "Don't touch it!" He didn't expect it to unfold like this. Ivan's body was flashed with lightning. Ugh! With a muffled groan from Robin, the two arms growing on Ivan suddenly turned into petals and dissipated. If these growing limbs were injured, Robin would also be injured. Let's stop playing around here. Ivan sat on the bed with his arms and legs crossed, looking down at the girl. She looked a little disheveled, with her hair all messy. But even so, her beauty could not be denied. Her long hair was as black as Hancock's, and her dark green eyes were even more attractive. Her nose was very three-dimensional, and at first glance, she had a unique feature. A quick look at her revealed her unique beauty. However, these were not what Ivan cared about. I told you I have some questions for you. Ivan said seriously. Robin pursed his lips, not panicking or yelling. This man should also be a user with special abilities, and not just any other one. He is definitely not his opponent in a head-on fight. Since he wants something from me now, I can use this as a way to get him around. Just like the many bastards I met before, I just need to gain his trust first. What do you want to ask? Robin said calmly, as long as you don't hurt me, I can tell you anything. Very good. Ivan clapped his hands and laughed. What is the name of the ancient kingdom that Dr. Clover didn't say? Robin, who was trying hard to think, suddenly became dull. Did she hear it wrong? She stared at Ivan in a daze. Didn't you hear me clearly? Or did I not express myself clearly? Ivan frowned and said, I am asking you, how much do you know about that ancient kingdom? How much do you know about the research results of the O'Hara scholars back then? Robin was a little confused. Chapter 32. How did he know? How did he know about the research of Dr. Shamrock and the scholars? After O'Hara was destroyed, all the past should have been burned with the fire that night. Robin stood up almost instantly, and she almost screamed, How do you know? It was an expected answer. Almost every time she talked about the secrets in the comics, someone would immediately ask how you knew. Ivan said calmly, Don't worry about how I know, you just need to answer my questions. Since you know about O'Hara's research, you should know this, right? Robin licked his lips and said seriously, That's a study about the blank 100 years. It is a study that is completely banned by the world government. Of course I know. Ivan said calmly, 8 years ago, O'Hara's research was known to the government, authorized by Admiral Jean Guo, and ordered by the 5 elders. The Navy launched a demon-killing order to completely destroy the Scholar Island. But what does that have to do with me? You just need to answer my questions. He actually knew everything about this. But, was he after O'Hara's research? Robin felt a little calmer. Was he an ambitious person who coveted the blank 100 years of history? Robin had seen a lot of such people during his 8 years of wandering. They always thought that as long as they understood the truth of the world, they could revive those terrifying weapons. I don't know. So Robin replied, I was only 8 years old at that time, how could I know what scholars were studying? Don't lie. Ivan looked into the woman's eyes, you passed the exam and became a formal archaeologist when you were 8 years old. Robin was even more stunned. How could this man know this? The government has never publicized its deeds in this regard. Robin couldn't help but get excited, and she thought of a possibility, are you a survivor of O'Hara? Although Robin didn't have many good memories of the island called O'Hara, only the scholars brought her some warmth in her childhood. However, if there are still people alive on that island, it is certainly not a bad thing. Unfortunately, it is not. Ivan shook his head, but there is one thing we have in common, we are all interested in the blank 100 years, tell me what I want to know. Nicole Robin pursed her lips. This guy, is he serious? He probably just wants to deceive her, right? After so many years of experience, it is really difficult for her to trust people again. After a brief silence, Nicole Robin said softly, I said I don't know is not to deceive you. When the doctor was about to invite me to join the research team, the Demon Slayer order came, and I didn't know anything. Yvonne looked at Robin carefully. Although he didn't know any micro-expression lie detection techniques, his observation ability brought by his strength was still outstanding. It was not difficult to see that Robin's expression was very frank, which was obviously different from before. So Yvonne could only believe that Robin really didn't know. What a pity. Yvonne shook his head, do we really have to go to the Giant Kingdom again? Giant Kingdom? Robin immediately noticed the information revealed in Ivan's words, why Giant Kingdom? Could it be that there is a historical text of Giant Kingdom? The girl's tone was already uncontrollable and she was instantly excited. She didn't know where the historical text was, and even if she wanted to go to the Grand Line, she just wanted to try her luck. Who would have thought that there would be an unexpected surprise? I don't know if there is any historical text in the Giant Kingdom. Yvonne said, but O'Hara's legacy is now in the Giant Kingdom. Oh, by the way, you don't know this. O'Hara's legacy. Robin was stunned. You mean, what do you mean? When O'Hara was bombed by the demon-killing order, the scholars desperately threw all the materials into the central lake. Yvonne explained to her, we should be thankful that the soldiers who carried out the mission did not attach importance to these materials, and thankful that the government was careless, or thought that they had already been soaked in water. In short, these materials were preserved in this way. A few months after the Demon Slayer order, a group of giants from Elbaf came to O'Hara. Robin's eyes gradually widened, and his gem-like pupils trembled slightly. They salvaged all the information. Although it is unknown how much they sorted out in the end, all the information was brought back to Elbaf. Yvonne said, by the way, their leader is a mysterious man wrapped in bandages. Tears suddenly welled up in Robin's eyes at this moment, is the leader's name Sorrow? Robin only knew one giant who knew O'Hara, who knew about this matter, and who knew the importance of this knowledge. Didn't Aokiji kill him? I don't know. Yvonne shook his head and looked at Robin. You can ask about this yourself when you go to the Giant Kingdom in the future. What do you mean? Robin asked in a daze, you want to take me to the Giant Kingdom? I need your help, Nicole Robin, it's great to meet you here. Yvonne stretched out his hand towards the girl, if you want to unlock the secret of the blank 100 years, you need someone who can decipher ancient characters, and there are only a handful of people in the world who have this ability. Nicole Robin's breathing suddenly became rapid. She put her hand on her chest and took 2 steps back, distanced herself from Yvonne. Why do you want to unlock the truth of the blank 100 years? Of course it's because the government doesn't want to see this history. If they don't want it, then I will reveal it and spread it all over the world. Yvonne said as a matter of course. Robin was speechless. What an arrogant boy. Did he want to be an enemy of the world government? I understand. Robin nodded gently, in that case, I will go with you for now. No matter what the boy wants, as long as he can help to unravel the truth of the blank 100 years of history, Robin is willing to lend him a hand. Excellent. Yvonne clapped his hands and smiled, come with me to the Kingdom of Flowers first. I have a plan that requires a lot of funds. I can get it there. Then we go to the New World. I'll send you to the Giant Kingdom. You go do what you want to do, and I'll do what I've planned. Then we'll meet again. What about the historical texts? Robin couldn't help asking. O'Hara's research at that time only touched on a tiny part of the blank 100 years. If we want to get a glimpse of the whole picture, we need more historical texts. No need. Yvonne shook his head, just 4 road sign historical texts are enough. Road signs? Robin was a little confused. Among all the historical texts, there are 4 special ones. Yvonne explained, after collecting all 4 stones and deciphering the text on them, you can get a location coordinate. That is where Raftel is. The Pirate King brought all the secrets there. In other words, just find it. All the secrets are solved. Robin unconsciously moved forward, with a look of anticipation on his charming face. Anyway. Yvonne stretched out his hand to Robin. Robin did not hesitate and took Ivan's hand. It's a pleasure to work with you. Yvonne said seriously. Yet. Robin nodded slightly. Chapter 33. Robin sat on a chair in front of the small desk in the room, quietly flipping through a book. The sunlight poured in through the porthole, and upon the woman's body, it instantly turned into a brilliant mass of gold. The girl wrapped in gold looked as if she were wearing a gorgeous dress, which did not conflict with her quiet temperament, but rather added a touch of luxury to her. This was the scene Ivan saw when he opened the door and walked in. It's time to eat. Ivan placed the plate in his hand on the desk in front of Robin. There were a lot of food on the plate. White bread, barbecue, thick soup, vegetable salad, and 2 apples. The nutritional combination is quite rich, and finally paired with a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice, it can be called perfect. This merchant ship is not small in scale. There is a special restaurant in the cabin for the guests on the ship to eat, and all the meal expenses are included in the ticket. But of course, Robin, an illegal immigrant, can't go directly to the restaurant to eat. If she was recognized, Ivan would have to rob the ship directly. He didn't want to do such a troublesome thing. Therefore, Robin has not left the room for so many days, and Ivan brought her 3 meals a day. It should be said that fortunately, the room Ivan booked is a luxury suite. The toilet and bathroom in the room are fully equipped, and even a lot of books are prepared to entertain the passengers. Otherwise, the girl's daily life should be greatly affected. Thank you. Robin thanked Ivan politely, closed the book carefully and put it aside, picked up the food and started to eat. Ivan walked to the big bed beside him and sat down. Looking at the girl eating elegantly but not slowly, he said lightly, "We will soon reach the waters near the Kingdom of Flowers. After getting the treasure of the 8 treasures navy from the precious jade iceberg, we will head to the New World." Ivan had no psychological burden at all about robbing the treasure of the 8 treasures navy. Although the 8 treasures navy was secretly an armed group directly under the Kingdom of Flowers, it was actually just a bandit group, and all their treasures were obtained by robbery. Robin wiped his mouth lightly, looked back, and said, "But the 8 treasures navy is not easy to mess with." The reputation of the cone green pepper resounded throughout the West Sea, and it is one of the legendary pirates. Ivan just smiled. Legend? That guy Green Pepper can indeed be called a legend. But the only legend about him is that his head was dented by a punch from Iron Fist Garp. Not to mention that his proud cone head is gone. Even if it was still there, Ivan didn't think he could withstand a few of his swords. Seeing that Ivan just smiled and said nothing, Robin could see that Ivan was full of confidence. She couldn't help but feel a little curious. What on earth did this boy, who was only 1 year older than her, rely on? What happens after that? Robin asked again, "How do we get to the New World? Do we have to return to West Island and then enter the Grand Line?" "No, there is not that much time to waste." Ivan shook his head. "The West Sea is adjacent to the New World, we can just cross the calm belt." Crossing the calm belt. Although they have been together for several days, Robin couldn't help but stare when he heard Ivan's bold words again, not to mention that it is difficult to sail in the calm belt without wind and waves, that sea area is the nest of sea kings, we will be swallowed up as soon as we enter. "You don't have to worry about this matter, it's not as difficult as you think," Ivan just said lightly. Now, it is not difficult for him to use the Conqueror's haki to drive the Sea King like Rayleigh did back then. In the final analysis, it is just the control of the Conqueror's haki. Seeing that Ivan looked like he knew nothing, Robin was a little angry. "Then I'll wait for Mr. Ivan's performance." The girl, who has always been intellectual and quiet, was a little angry, but she looked playful and cute. Ivan laughed and didn't say anything. He started his daily exercise by himself. As I said, if the body is not exercised regularly, it will become weak. Ivan asked the ghost ninja to take out a huge piece of gold from the shadow world and started squatting as a weight. Robin was quite surprised by this. Not only this huge piece of gold, but also Ivan's special ability. The ability to control shadows? Isn't that the shadow fruit of Marijoa, one of the 7 warlords of the sea? Robin was very curious. Ivan's exercise lasted for several hours until he was sweating profusely. However, this level is just to maintain his condition for him, and it can't make his body stronger. More intense exercise is needed. But this is the only way on the ship. "I'm going to take a shower first, you can do whatever you want." Ivan took off his sweat-soaked t-shirt and walked into the bathroom with clean clothes. Robin, who was reading at the desk, did not blush because of Ivan's behavior. She pursed her lips gently. She was certainly familiar with the emblem on the boy's chest. It was the mark of the celestial dragons, the hoof of the 9 sky-flying dragon, and it was the proof of the celestial dragon's slave status. This boy, Ivan, had an extremely shameful past, but he looked unscrupulous. Did he escape when Fisher Tiger attacked Marijoa last year? That's why he wanted to be an enemy of the government. Okay, don't just stand there. Ivan came out of the bathroom wiping his hair while thinking. The handsome boy yawned, it's getting late. Robin nodded lightly, without being pretentious, and walked into the bathroom with clothes. When the hot water fell on his body, Robin closed his eyes and sighed slowly. I have to admit that I have been relaxed a lot in the past few days. I am not as nervous as before, afraid that the crisis will come at the next moment. That man, Ivan, he really has no ill will towards me. This can be confirmed. But can he really be trusted? Robin didn't know, and she didn't dare to confirm. She didn't want to believe anyone. When Robin dried her hair and walked out of the bathroom, the boy was already lying on the big bed and snoring. The sleeping boy was very quiet and well behaved, without any of his usual dominance. Occupying half of the big bed. Robin sighed softly and slowly lay down beside Ivan. This is how she spent the past few days. After all, there was only one boat in the room, and Ivan didn't have any spare bedding. Robin was a little shy at first, after all, she was still a pure girl. But after so many days, she was almost used to it. Pulling a piece of quilt over her body, Robin slowly fell asleep. Robin was awakened by the violent vibration. When she opened her eyes, she found herself lying in a strong embrace. She was used to it, she always liked to hold something when she slept. Robin sat up, and her black hair like a waterfall cascaded down. What's wrong? She found that Ivan had already opened his eyes, but was just in a daze. Trouble is coming. Ivan got out of bed and walked to the side of the ship. On the sea, a pirate ship was firing heavy artillery and heading towards the merchant ship. That is. Robin came over and stood shoulder to shoulder with Ivan. She frowned at the flag flying on the ship, Urbeo Navy. Chapter 34. One of the 8 notorious bandit gangs near the Kingdom of Flowers. Robin's face was slightly solemn. Your target, the 8 Treasures Navy, is the strongest one among them. The 8 bandit gangs are united in marriage and help each other. The Flower Kingdom can't do anything to them, and even the Navy can't wipe them out. The Flower Kingdom can't do anything to them. Ivan chuckled. These 8 bandit gangs are clearly the Flower Kingdom's extra staff troops. Although they are not completely obedient to the orders of the Flower Kingdom's king, the actions of the 8 bandit gangs are largely based on the interests of the Flower Kingdom. It is not an exaggeration to say that they are the Flower Kingdom's National Guard. They are so powerful. Robin seemed to be warning Ivan, her brows slightly furrowed. This is indeed troublesome. The greed of the Urbeo Navy is even greater than that of the Babeo Navy. They will never let go of any wealth on the ship. If you resist, the only fate is to be sunk. So cruel? Ivan pursed her lips slightly. There is not much description of the Kingdom of Flowers in the original work. The Urbeo Navy only showed up, and even the Babeo Navy was not described much. Ivan's understanding of them is certainly not as good as Robin, a native of the West Sea. You stay in the room, I'll take care of it. Ivan picked up the knife beside the bed and said to Robin. You're going to deal with it? Robin asked in surprise, what are you going to do? If they exploit you one by one, your existence will definitely be exposed, which will be very troublesome. Ivan casually opened the door and turned back, saying, I'll go get them out. He closed the door and left. Robin was slightly stunned, then suddenly smiled lightly, as shy as a lotus. Ivan walked out of the room, and the cabin was already in chaos. The passengers on the ship were running around in the cabin like headless flies, and the panicked shouts made Ivan feel quite noisy. Going up to the deck along the corridor stairs, the guards on the ship were sweating profusely. It can be seen that the deterrent power of the Urbeo Navy in the West Sea is still sufficient, and they dare not even fight back against the opponent's heavy artillery bombardment. Ivan also saw the bald middle-aged captain lying on the side of the ship crying, how could it be? I have already paid protection fees to the Babeo Navy. Why are they attacking us? What should I do? Who will save me? That's enough. Everyone was just trembling with fear, no one thought of resisting, and they didn't dare to raise their guns to point at the approaching ship. Ivan walked to the side of the ship and drew the long knife from his waist. Dragon flash! Just casually swinging the knife, the white vacuum wave has spread over the sea like a torrent, blowing over the deck of the ship in an instant. The tall mast suddenly flew into the sky, and then fell heavily on the sea, splashing huge waves. Both the ship and this ship were instantly quiet. Then Ivan saw that on the ship in the distance, the attacking robbers were shouting something in panic. Soon, the big ship turned around. Although it had lost the mast, the robbers relied on the oars to row away quickly. Ivan nodded slightly. It was still sensible. He had deliberately shown mercy. Whether it was the High-Bao Navy, Ivan didn't care. But the merchant ship under his feet was different. If he was involved, he would be finished. Did you repel Urbao's navy? There is a strong man like you hidden on the ship. The bald captain rushed to Ivan like a rabbit, excited and unable to control himself. Thank you so much. To be honest, if it weren't for you, I really don't know what to do. I used my life savings to buy this boat. If something goes wrong, my wife and children at home won't know how to survive, and my life will be over. Please let me thank you very much. He bowed to Ivan repeatedly, looking respectful. It's not necessary. It's enough to get to the Kingdom of Flowers as soon as possible. Ivan ignored him and went back to the room. He was greeted by Robin's surprised eyes. What is that? Is it your ability? Although Robin has a lot of knowledge, he seems a little narrow-minded when it comes to fighting. It's just an ordinary swing of the knife. Ivan said lightly. This guy. Robin frowned slightly, he must be very proud in his heart. At this time, there was a knock on the door. Ivan frowned and looked at Robin. Robin nodded in understanding and walked quickly into the bathroom. Then Ivan went to open the door. The bald captain's bright smile appeared in his eyes. He was holding a briefcase in his hand. Sir, in order to thank you for your help, we have prepared a reward for you, and we will also have a sumptuous food specially prepared for you later. Ivan took the bag. Okay, that's it, don't disturb me. With that, he closed the door. What a hassle! He said to himself. What trouble? Isn't this the treatment a hero deserves? Robin leaned against the bathroom door leisurely and chuckled. If heroic deeds are not rewarded, how many people are willing to do good deeds? Humph! Ivan snorted. He was too lazy to check how much reward was in the bag, and let the ninja take it into the shadow world. The next day, they finally arrived at the Kingdom of Flowers. During this day, the bald captain came to Ivan several times to express his gratitude. He said that in fact, after encountering the attack of Urbao's navy, many passengers and sailors on the ship were very reluctant to land in the Kingdom of Flowers again. But he thought that since this was the destination of his benefactor, he had to complete this trip anyway. Ivan didn't react after hearing this. He just wanted to please himself. It was a useless move. After this separation, they probably wouldn't see each other again in their lives. Moreover, it won't be long before this captain will be terrified because he knows me, right? Ivan thought. He and Robin, who was wearing a cloak to cover his appearance, disembarked at a port in the Kingdom of Flowers. The captain sent them to the port and thanked them profusely when they left. Where to go next? Walking in this busy port, Robin asked casually. Go to the palace. Ivan said, the treasure hiding place of the 8 Treasures Navy, that place called the Jade Iceberg, should be known to few people, so, find someone who knows the way, at least, knows where the 8 Treasures Navy is. Robin turned his head, and glanced at Ivan with his big eyes under the cloak. This guy is so reckless. The Kingdom of Flowers is a member of the world government. Is he going to threaten the king just because of a disagreement? Can't you be more secretive? Robin couldn't help but say, if possible, there is no need to fight against the Babao Navy and opponents like Qing Jiao. I will try to control myself. Ivan said calmly. Boom! A loud noise suddenly came from behind. Ivan stopped. What happened? Robin turned back in surprise. Explosion. There were too many people and ships in the port, and nothing could be seen. Ivan jumped lightly and landed on the mast of a ship next to him. From here he could see clearly what was happening in the distance. In the distance, a ship was exploding. A very familiar merchant ship. Boom boom boom. Several more shells fell on the ship, and the huge explosion directly engulfed the merchant ship. Call. Ivan slowly breathed a sigh of relief. He jumped off the mast and landed next to Robin. What's going on? Robin asked. The time for restraint is over. Ivan put his arm around Robin's slender waist. What are you doing all of a sudden? Even though they had unconsciously done many intimate things during the days they had slept together, the masculine aura that came over them at this moment still made Robin blush. Ivan said nothing, but he took Robin and jumped up, landing on the deck of a nearby ship, then jumped forward and landed on the mast of another ship. When he jumped and landed again, he had already reached the port shore. He did not stop and jumped up again. Wait, where are you going? Robin asked in panic. There was the sea below. Golden lightning jumped on Ivan's body, and the next moment, he was walking on the water. Robin heard a voice. To kill someone. Chapter 35. Is this guy running on the water? Robin realized this. Like a gust of wind and thunder, it only caused some slight waves on the sea. Suddenly, Robin saw a ship on the sea not far away, which was already emitting thick smoke and blazing flames. Could it be? Her body trembled slightly. She looked up and could only see the boy's clear jawline, as clear as a knife and an axe, and the sunken corners of his mouth. Ivan. 3 ships were floating on the sea not far from the port, and the flags of the Urbeo navy were hung on the masts. Ha ha ha. You deserve it. How dare you disrespect our Urbeo navy? Turning into bait for fish is the best fate for you. A shirtless burly man stood at the bow of a ship in the middle and laughed, in this West Sea. No one can compete with us. Where's that swordsman? Hey? He chopped off our mast with one sword, bringing shame to our warriors. Why doesn't that guy stand up now? Is it because of fear? Suddenly, a golden light flashed before his eyes, and a figure wrapped in thunder appeared in front of him in an instant. Secret teaching, one heart. Ivan passed the man by and stopped in the middle of the deck of the ship. The arcs jumping in his path had not yet dissipated. Who is it? The Urbeo sailors on the deck exclaimed. So fast. How did this guy suddenly appear? But, there is something faster. Behind Ivan, the man who was originally talking nonsense on the bow had a stiff expression, and his body slowly slid down. He slid down little by little. His body and lower body were completely separated, and there was an extremely smooth cut on his waist. Before the Urbeo sailors on the ship could exclaim, the golden storm instantly swallowed the entire ship. In just a blink of an eye, the ship and all the people on board had been cut into pieces by the golden slash. Robin was slightly shocked. This guy is so powerful? When the big ship was cut into pieces, Ivan had already jumped up and aimed at another ship next to it. The lightning splashed on the blade and turned into a swaggering lightning column in the blink of an eye. Thunder of Ba. With just a swing of the knife, the golden thunder has turned into a spear, piercing the ship from the deck to the bottom like a broken bamboo. Then, a huge explosion occurred. The whole ship was blown to pieces, and only debris was still flying in the sky. Ivan landed lightly on the mast of the last ship, looking down at the stunned robbers below. What is that? The robbers screamed in terror, their voices hoarse. The 3 ships that came together, in the blink of an eye, only 2 ships were left. They didn't even realize what was happening. It was too fast. Everything happened too fast. In just a blink of an eye, the 2 ships were destroyed. Take me to your base camp. A calm voice came from above. The robbers looked up in astonishment. A figure had appeared on their mast without them knowing when. Was it him? Did he do this? What do you? Some robbers calmed down and tried to ask the identity of the people who came. Some people subconsciously picked up their weapons. But before the person who was talking could finish his words or raise his gun, lightning bolts jumped down, accompanied by screams of pain, and directly electrocuted these people into charcoal. I said lead the way. Ivan said calmly. The robbers on the deck were all speechless at the same time. Monster. This is definitely an incredible monster. Some people were so scared that their legs were shaking. Finally, someone bravely said, we will take you back. We are just afraid that you dare not. Lead the way. Ivan just said. Okay. The man shouted at the top of his voice, brothers, return. Take this boy to our water fort to play. Although his face was pale and his eyes were filled with fear that could not be concealed, at this moment, when he looked at Ivan, he could not help but reveal a playful expression. He is just a kid who thinks he has some strength. The people here are definitely not his opponents, but when he returns, Dong Liang will let him know how vast this world is. The ship turned and headed in the direction they came from. Ivan sat on the mast holding Robin and looked back slightly. On the sea behind, around the ship that was bombarded and blazing, there were already ships from the port going to rescue it. Is this really okay? Robin turned his head slightly, trying to find a comfortable angle in Ivan's arms. It's too reckless to just barge into the other party's lair. And their base should have received the news by now. Ivan continued, when we arrive, we should be facing Urbeo's navy who are ready for battle, but it doesn't matter, I have a plan. Plan? So Ivan. Robin tilted his head and looked at Ivan's profile. What is your plan? A foolproof plan. Ivan said indifferently. Is it foolproof? Robin lowered his head slightly, just leaning quietly in Ivan's arms without saying anything. The ship continued to move forward, and Ivan released several electric currents from time to time to electrocute several robbers who raised their guns to him. About half a day later, the ship came to a new sea area. On the sea ahead, there was a large island reef, covering an area of several square kilometers. On this reef, stood a water fort, which was linked crisscross and looked extraordinary, and it was completely the size of a small town. This is the headquarters of our Urbeo Navy. On the deck, a robber raised his head, looked at Ivan, and said provocatively, "Brother, we are here." Robin took out a telescope from somewhere and looked at the island not far away. On the coast, a group of black robbers have gathered, led by a burly giant with a naked upper body and his hair fluttering in the wind. And in the port on the shore, a number of warships are ready to go, the sails have been lowered, and they are ready to surround. There are about 2,000 to 3,000 people. Is this Urbeo's navy? It's really as good as its reputation. So, Ivan. Robin rubbed Ivan's shoulder with his head. What's your plan? If we don't act now, we'll be blasted into slag. I will show you soon. Ivan stood up, stretched out his right hand, and aimed at the port of the island. The target has been locked. Heavenly Star! Ivan shouted. His physical strength was being rapidly drained away, transforming into a special energy that drifted away. What? Robin looked at Ivan. Nothing had changed in the boy. He hadn't even drawn his sword. There wasn't even a trace of lightning on his body. Look up. Ivan said calmly. Robin looked up in surprise. Then, she was stunned. Meteorite? Chapter 36. The clouds in the sky suddenly broke apart, and a huge object fell from the clouds. It was a huge meteorite with a diameter of nearly 100 meters. A huge shadow instantly covered it. Robin turned his head in astonishment and looked at Ivan. Did he do this too? Ivan, what kind of devil fruit ability are you? What kind of ability is this? What is that? On the deck, the robbers were instantly furious. In fact, it was not just the robbers on this side who were screaming. On the other side of the sea, the robbers on the shore and on the boat were also pale. What's going on? How could a meteorite fall? Is it a coincidence? At such a time. It must be that guy's doing. He's a person with special abilities. The robbers shouted in fear. Then finally, someone realized what the most important thing to do now was, run. Run quickly. Such a huge meteorite was about to fall, and a catastrophe was about to befall. However, there were only a few seconds left before the meteorite fell. Where could they escape to? Don't panic. At this time, the giant man with naked upper body, the pillar of the current Urbeo Navy roared, "It's just a meteorite. Watch me smash it." Before he finished speaking, he had already shot up, and his right fist was now pitch black, with invisible waves wrapped around it. As the leader of the Urbeo Navy, which has been married to the Babeo Navy for many years, he certainly also mastered the power called domineering. Moreover, he also has a physical skill shared by 8 bandit gangs, but named Ba Chongchuan. Release shock waves from the body to directly smash objects. Ha! The giant roared and punched the falling meteorite with all his might. It should be said that the effect was immediate. The huge meteorite was shattered in an instant, and the shock wave that spread out was simply not something that the fragile rock could withstand. However, the effect of force is mutual, and the force brought by the extremely heavy meteorite falling at high speed also twisted the arm of the pillar in an instant. However, it was barely blocked. The speed of the meteorite's fall was slowed down. A smile appeared on the face of the pillar. However, Dong Liang! Watch out! There's another one! On Ivan's side, the pirates on the deck shouted at the top of their lungs. Only they could see clearly that above the meteorite, there was an even bigger one. The diameter was over 200 meters. A real behemoth. Ivan shook his head slightly. It was still far from the level of Uchiha Madara. The gap was nearly 10 times. But it was enough. Dong Liang, the giant who was excited about smashing half of the meteorite, suddenly found that the remaining half of the meteorite shook violently, and then crushed down at a faster speed. All he could do was, "Ah! How, How could this be possible? How could this be possible? Monster! Monster! Unbelievable whispers and horrified screams echoed on the deck at the same time. How is it? Is it a foolproof plan? Yvonne asked calmly. Robin paused. Is this a plan? It's just a matter of arriving and attacking directly. But it is indeed foolproof. As long as there is no power to oppose this man, then this plan is flawless. So, can you let me go? Robin said calmly. Don't worry. Yvonne took Robin and jumped up, with arcs of electricity jumping on his body instantly. The moment he landed on the sea, he jumped lightly, took advantage of the force of the rising waves and jumped on the top of another wave. Yvonne was flying in the waves. In just a dozen seconds, he had landed in the bombing area with rising smoke. Dragon Flash! He swung his sword casually, and the surging vacuum wave whistled, instantly blowing away all the smoke. This island reef had completely collapsed, and the imposing water fortress was no longer in ruins. Everything was blown away. Yvonne was standing on the broken meteorite wreckage at this time. He finally let go of Robin, and the girl looked down and frowned slightly. There were corpses everywhere, and there were basically few complete bodies. What else is there to do? Robin asked in surprise. Aren't they all dead? Are they not going to spare even their corpses? No, I'm just looking for someone to ask for directions. Yvonne swung his unsheathed blade downwards, and in the vibration, the debris of the meteorite was directly torn apart by the vacuum wave. After the tearing, a small space was revealed. In this space, a man with a twisted figure was holding a den mushi. Cough cough cough. Qing Jiao. Urbeo's navy is finished. The pair of blood-stained eyes stared at Yvonne through the cracks. Help me to get revenge. Help Urbeo's navy to get revenge. Still alive. Robin suddenly pales. What an amazing vitality. The body has been twisted beyond recognition. Yvonne waved his hand, and several figures appeared beside the figure. Hey! What happened? An anxious voice came from the den mushi. Have you been attacked? Yes, I wiped out Urbeo's navy. Yvonne took the den mushi from Shadow Ninja and said calmly, if you feel unwilling, then come and take revenge. It's best to bring the other bandit gangs with you. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone, and then there was an extremely cruel voice. Boy, who are you? You don't need to know this. Yvonne said, my destination is Bayou Iceberg, let's meet there. After saying that, Yvonne hung up the phone. Then, he looked down at the pillar of the Urbeo navy who was brought up from the underground space by the ninja. You should know how to get to Bayou Iceberg, right? Yvonne said calmly, if you say you don't know, then I'm afraid I won't be able to keep the appointment. You don't want to see this situation, do you? Good. The man spoke painfully, but still raised his head vigorously, I'll take you there. Robin was a little dazed, as if he had heard the same words just a few hours ago. Chapter 37. One of the 8 most notorious bandit groups in the waters near the Kingdom of Flowers, and the headquarters of the Babao Navy, which is recognized as the strongest. Damn kid! The big man crushed the den mushi in his hand. What on earth did he do to the Urbeo navy? The 8 bandit groups in the Kingdom of Flowers are all in the same boat, both internally and externally. Even if they are not as close as brothers, they are close to each other, and have been in this relationship for hundreds of years. In this case, the Urbeo navy suffered a devastating blow, and no one could sit still. Not to mention, the pillar of the 8 treasures navy, Qing Jiao, is not a man with a good temper at all. Dong Liang. Should we notify the other navy troops immediately? A cadre of the Babao navy asked cautiously. Why didn't you notify us? Qing Jiao said angrily, since that guy asked us all to go over, how can we not do what he wants? How dare he covet my precious jade iceberg? I will never forgive him. The precious jade iceberg is King Jiao's forbidden delicacy. Ever since his head was hit by Garp and he could no longer use the cone dragon cone nail, the precious jade iceberg could never be opened again, and the savings of the 8 treasures navy stored there for hundreds of years could never be taken out. Although it can't be taken out, Qing Jiao definitely doesn't want others to get involved. After all, this is much more wealth than the other 7 navies combined, because the 8 treasures navy has been strong for hundreds of years and has always been in a leading position among the 8 groups. Let all the navy troops come over here. Qing Jiao shouted, let that arrogant kid see our strength. Although he thought highly of himself, Qing Jiao was also a little apprehensive. Yesterday, The Urbeo navy was still fine, but in such a short time, the Urbeo navy was destroyed. This is not something that ordinary people can do. Someone must be eyeing them. Eyeing their 8 navy troops, and even the entire Flower Kingdom. In this case, of course they have to go all out. Prepare the fleet. Qing Jiao ordered loudly, prepare to attack. In the waters near the Kingdom of Flowers, on a certain sea surface. The ship that had carried Yvonne and the other 2 to the Urbeo navy was still moving rapidly on the sea. A twisted guy who was almost unrecognizable was thrown casually on the bow. He looked extremely miserable and was dying. However, when this pillar respected by all the Urbeo navy fell here powerlessly, all the Urbeo navy on the ship did not even dare to look at him. The reason was simple. The devil-like boy who destroyed the entire Urbeo navy was sitting leisurely on the side of the ship, flipping through a book to pass the time. Robin stood next to Yvonne, leaning on the thread, and her body leaning forward further outlined the girl's moving curves. She tilted her head and glanced at Yvonne who was concentrating on reading, but the girl did not speak. Are you going to ask me what my plan is? Ivan's eyes were still on the book, but he said. It must be another perfect plan. Robin smiled faintly, for example, wait until everyone is gathered and then throw 2 meteorites. Haha. Yvonne couldn't help laughing. He closed the book, but this time it's probably impossible to solve it with just 2 meteorites, so there are follow-up plans. Although Yvonne didn't think much of Qing Jiao, they had a lot of people. The Urbeo navy alone had 2,000 to 3,000 combatants, and the other 7 navies had at least more than 10,000 people in total. In addition to Qing Jiao, the other 6 naval pillars should not be too weak. So Yvonne didn't take it lightly as he imagined. He was actually quite serious. Anyway, let's quickly solve the problem here. Robin gently pushed a strand of hair that was blown by the wind back behind her ear. Hurry up and go to the new world. She couldn't wait any longer. Are you so confident in me? Yvonne raised his eyebrows. You said your opponent is the very powerful Cone Pepper, have you ever thought that you might lose? If that's the case. Robin said calmly, we can only die together. Yvonne was slightly startled, then couldn't help laughing, die together? Well said, Robin. If we fail, then there is only one death. But not at this time. Not at this time. Robin looked at the young man, his eyes seemed to be shining. Robin couldn't help but smile. What he meant was that even if he died, he would not betray himself. Robin looked at the end of the endless sea. Yvonne asked her if she had confidence in him. Robin didn't know how to answer. It was just that now, knowing that the next opponent she would face was the strongest robber groups in the West Sea, her heart was very calm at this moment. Just like when she woke up in his arms a few days ago, she just felt very at ease. The precious jade iceberg is on the other side of the Kingdom of Flowers, in a very southerly position, and the temperature is very low. When approaching this sea area, heavy snow had already fallen from the sky. Yvonne was not surprised by this. Even outside the Grand Line, abnormal climate and abnormal terrain in this world are definitely not uncommon. Call. Yvonne slowly exhaled a breath of white air. He saw a white island on the sea in front of him. Is that the gem iceberg? Robin couldn't help rubbing his shoulders with both hands. It's hard to imagine that there is such an ice-covered island in this dimension. Gem iceberg is not an island located in the polar region, and its ice is not ordinary ice. Ordinary ice can't block the attack with domineering attached. Is it cold? Yvonne asked the girl. Fortunately, the temperature is not as low as expected. Robin said softly. Yvonne snapped his fingers, and a ninja emerged from the shadows, holding a thick coat in his hand. He stored a lot of supplies in the shadow world, including various clothes, which came in handy now. Put it on first. Then I won't be polite. Robin took the clothes and went on board without saying anything. His face immediately became much better. The big ship approached the island and stopped at the shore. The storm iceberg is right in the center of the island. The pillar of the Urbeo navy spoke with difficulty, with a sneer, if you have the courage, go for it. Yvonne didn't even look back, and directly embraced Robin and jumped to the snow-covered coast, then shot out and headed directly to the center of the island. Let us go. On the ship, the bandits of Urbeo's navy were overjoyed. Can they survive? Sizzle. The golden thunder spear came across the sky and instantly penetrated the entire ship from front to back. Boom. The violent explosion immediately dispelled the coldness in the vicinity. Chapter 38. The island was not too big. Yvonne and Robin had not gone far when the terrain began to rise. They followed the snow-covered slopes all the way up, crossed the ridge, and finally appeared in front of them a vast expanse of white. The circular peaks surrounded a flat land. No, that was not the ground at all, but frozen ice, as if it was originally a lake that was now frozen. The precious jade iceberg, so. Robin pulled at her clothes. Ivan's clothes were a little big for her. She was tall, but the slender figure of a girl could only be described as thin in front of the strong Yvonne. The girl looked around. Which mountain is it? There are many mountains surrounding this frozen lake, and basically they have no characteristics, they are all the same. Is there a possibility that the Bayou iceberg is not a mountain? Yvonne hugged Robin and jumped forward. After a few jumps, he landed on the edge of the lake below. From here, he could see the appearance of the lake more clearly. It was quite wide, roughly circular, with a diameter of more than 5 kilometers. It was not easy to find the treasure of the 8 treasures navy on this piece of ice with the naked eye. But fortunately, Yvonne still had the observation haki. After a quick glance, he determined the direction. This side. Yvonne pulled Robin onto the ice. There was no need to run here. The ice was extremely smooth. The two began to skate here, moving forward slowly. Is this the right time to do this? Robin was completely dragged by Yvonne. Even if she didn't burst out her full speed, Ivan's speed was not something she could catch up with. Looking at the boy's back, the girl felt helpless. We have arrived. Yvonne did not answer directly, but stopped directly. This is it. Robin lowered his head in amazement. It's amazing. Of course, there was still a piece of ice under the feet of the two. But under the ice, there was a dazzling golden light. Gold, silver, and jewelry. There were countless gold, silver, and jewelry under the feet of the two, almost piled up like a mountain. If it weren't for the ice blocking it, just looking down would be dazzling. Just as Robin said, this is really amazing. It can be said that it is worthy of the accumulation of the 8 treasures navy for hundreds of years. The amount of treasure here is probably not less than the ruins of Shandora. If these treasures are obtained, then there will be sufficient funds to implement his plan. Yvonne thought. So, is this the Bayou iceberg? Robin chuckled. Sure enough, it's not a mountain at all. So, what should we do next to take out all these treasures? No. Yvonne shook his head. He looked up and looked around at the mountains around the lake. Let them sleep here for a few minutes. Before that, there are other things to do. Robin understood. Are they here already? Yvonne nodded gently. Don't leave my side. I can help too. The girl said seriously. Yvonne just chuckled. He casually pulled out the sword from his waist, and the blade was suddenly entangled with thunder. A simple vacuum wave could not fly that far, but thunder was different. Thunder of Ba. Swinging the blade, the thunder turned into a spear, and flew straight across the distant sky and landed on a hill by the lake. Boom! The ice and snow were blown all over the sky, and the thunder on the hill was jumping, and it was directly blown shorter. But Yvonne saw clearly that in addition to the flying snow, there were also figures jumping on the mountain. Little devil! The angry roar was clearly audible even from a distance of several kilometers. A sturdy figure jumped out from behind a mountain, jumped to the top of the mountain, and looked down at Yvonne in the distance. You are courting your own death. Can't hide it anymore. Yvonne chuckled. I think there is no need for them to hide any longer. Robin gritted his teeth. With that sturdy figure as the pioneer, dense figures emerged from the surrounding mountains and completely surrounded the two of them. At a glance, the number of these guys forming the encirclement was at least close to 20,000. We have been waiting here for a long time. We have been surrounded from the beginning. Robin said. Theta Euro trademark s not all. Yvonne said. More than that. Robin frowned. What do you mean? Yvonne said. Didn't you hear? Hear? Robin was startled and pricked up her ears. Then she really heard the sharp sound of breaking wind. She saw dense shells falling from the sky like raindrops. The horrific memory of 8 years ago was suddenly awakened at this moment, and Robin's face turned pale. Ugh! The girl hugged her shoulders, her body already trembling slightly. Don't be afraid, Robin. Yvonne said calmly, just stand by my side. Golden thunder instantly jumped up from his body and filled the sky in an instant. Boom 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 boom. The falling shells were all detonated in an instant, and a brilliant firework bloomed in the sky. Do you like this fireworks display? Ivan turned his head slightly and smiled at the girl's frightened eyes. Robin looked at Ivan's smiling face and suddenly felt less scared. Strength returned to her body. Isn't it time to enjoy the fireworks now? The girl smiled brightly, her face no longer pale. We are still surrounded. After realizing that the bombardment was useless, the bandits all over the mountains had already launched a charge under the leadership of their respective leaders. Kill that brat! The leader of the 8 Treasures Navy, Cone Green Pepper, led the way and roared angrily. In other directions, several other navy leaders were also furious. They had just seen the end of the Urbeo Navy, who were of the same blood, through the telescope. This brat must not be forgiven. He must be killed without a burial place. Surrounded. Ivan looked around and said, "You got one thing wrong, Robin, they didn't surround us." At this moment, violent momentum surged out of Ivan's body like a flood, and in just a blink of an eye, this torrent of momentum had swept across the entire ice surface. The charging navy fell one after another like wheat being harvested by a combine harvester. After just a few breaths, only a small number of people who could still stand were left. Conqueror's Haki. Qing Jiao, who was charging furiously, couldn't help but exclaim. But who doesn't have Conqueror's Haki? Boom! A strong spirit burst out from Qing Jiao, and instantly collided with Ivan's Conqueror's Haki in the air, creating black lightning. This kid has the talent of a king. The pillar of the Urbeo Navy screamed in shock. Before he could finish his cry, a white vacuum wave came across the sky, and the subordinates standing in front of him were instantly cut in half. Ugh! He only had time to put his hands in front of his chest, attaching his domineering aura, and then he was chopped away by the sword. While maintaining his domineering aura, Ivan casually swung his sword, and the vacuum waves whistled. The surrounding navy soldiers who were charging and barely able to stand were once again attacked, which made them feel desperate. Look! Ivan said to Robin with a smile, we surrounded them. Chapter 39. Vacuum waves roared continuously on the ice field, and the thieves coming from all directions were swept away easily like dust in a storm. The destructive power of a top swordsman is definitely not inferior to that of a top natural ability user. With just a wave of his hand, he could easily tear apart mountains and cut through the sea. Although Ivan is not an orthodox swordsman in this world, he doesn't even know what the breathing of all things is, but this does not prevent the vacuum waves released by his swing of the sword from having the power to tear apart everything. The number of people became the most ridiculous thing at this time. The robbers who were still awake at this time regretted in their hearts why they were not stunned by the demon's domineering color at the first time like their other companions. If that were the case, at least they wouldn't have to face the hell in front of them now. Little devil! As Ivan slaughtered wantonly, an angry roar came from the side. He turned his head and saw the plump Cone Pepper approaching first. Although he was a fat man, he showed extraordinary agility at this time. He jumped up in an instant, and his flat head was covered with a dark domineering aura. 8 punches, Wudu! Ivan noticed that on King Jiao's flat head, in addition to being covered with domineering aura, there were also invisible waves spreading. Of course, that was not the floating level of armed color. This guy was far from that level. It's the 8 punch. Robin's eyes were slightly serious. It can easily crush steel and can easily resist guns and cannons. Special skills. Ivan sneered, not worth mentioning. In his opinion, the so-called 8-strike fist is nothing more than a poor imitation of high-level armed color, and is completely worthless. Thunder jumped on the blade, and the next moment he swung the knife again, and the thunder spear hit King Jiao's body in an instant. It should be said that Qing Jiao still has some strength, and he was not directly electrocuted into charcoal. The domineering aura and the shock wave of the 8-strike fist collided with Ivan's thunder and caused a huge explosion. But even so, Qing Jiao himself was directly blown away by the explosion. Success! At the same time, several voices sounded at the back of Ivan. Robin looked back in panic. At the moment when Ivan and Qing Jiao were fighting, several other navy pillars had come around from the back and launched a surprise attack on Ivan and even Robin. They also mastered the armed color domineering and used the 8 punches. They were determined to blow Ivan into pieces in one go. Robin subconsciously crossed her hands in front of her chest. But she knew that at this distance, even if she could barely control one person, it would be completely useless. But fortunately, there was Ivan. The blue energy body suddenly condensed, and in an instant formed a blue skeleton giant that enveloped Ivan and Robin. Boom boom boom! 6 attacks fell on the back of the skeleton giant at the same time, but, let alone smashing the giant, it was impossible to even shake him a little. What? The faces of several bandit leaders suddenly changed. They were determined to deliver a fatal blow, but they couldn't even touch the opponent. What is this? Robin looked curiously at the half-skeletal giant that seemed to be made of unknown energy. Is this another one of Ivan's strange abilities? I told you, just stand by my side. Ivan chuckled. The initial stage of Susanoo grows ribs and arms. The first stage of Susanoo turns into a skeleton giant. The Susanoo at this stage cannot bring him a huge load, so he can still talk and laugh. Get out of the way. Let me do it. The roar came from the sky again. Ivan looked up and saw that the green pepper that had just been blown away had attacked again. It jumped into the air and spun like a cannonball, smashing towards him. The secret of 8 punch fists, no cone dragon, no cone nail. With a loud shout, the shells fell. Ivan slowly sheathed his sword, and one of the 4-armed Susanoo's right arm suddenly turned black, and then he punched upward with all his might. Boom! Susanoo's fist collided violently with King Jiao's head, and the violent collision of armed colors brought black electric light jumping everywhere. But this stalemate only lasted for a blink of an eye. The next moment, Qing Jiao felt an unparalleled force coming from that huge fist, almost crushing his head. Wow! He only had time to scream before he turned into a cannonball and flew out, landing on the ice field in the distance, turning into a bowling ball and rolling forward, finally crashing into a mountain wall. Qing Jiao! The remaining navy pillars were furious. Qing Jiao, who had used the secret of the 8-punch fist, was beaten away so easily. Where did this kid come from? Is this really the strong man that the West Sea should have? Even Robin looked at Ivan with surprise. That's Qing Jiao, the most famous pirate in the West Sea. A monster with a bounty of 500 million. But Ivan didn't think it was a big deal. Is a bounty of 500 million high? 14 years later, it was just a pirate of Kaido's 6 sons. He is only about the level of the top vice admiral of the marine headquarters. And Qing Jiao is not even as strong as Liu Zi. In the original work, he was even beaten up by Doflamingo's men. This guy was only killed by Garp's punch at his peak. After losing his proud pointed hair, he fell into depravity. Even now, 14 years ago in the original work, it is hard to say whether he has the strength of an ordinary vice admiral. And aren't vice admirals of the navy always positioned to be killed instantly by the strong? Ivan looked back at the pale-faced bandit leaders. It's so noisy. Susanoo's huge body suddenly turned around, and the 2 arms on the right suddenly swept across. With the crackling sound of bones breaking, these bandits were swept away by Susanoo like rag dolls. It's not over yet. Ivan looked around and saw that there were still many bandits approaching. Thunder condensed on Susanoo's 4 arms. Susanoo at this stage already had the ability to make simple weapons. Ivan condensed 4 lightning spears on Susanoo's 4 hands. The next moment, Susanoo charged and threw the spears in all directions. The lightning spears crossed the sky and landed in the 4 groups of thieves. Boom! Thunder splashed, and the surging thunder spread dozens or hundreds of meters away, directly destroying everything within the coverage area. The efficiency of cleaning up the soldiers is no less than waving the vacuum wave. Damn kid! Regret your stupidity. It was the familiar roar again. Ivan was too lazy to turn around. But Robin turned her head subconsciously. Then, she was a little surprised. Ivan, look, Qing Jiao is different from before. Ivan turned back in surprise. Then she saw that the top of King Jiao's head, which was covered in blood and swollen nose, was no longer shriveled, but turned into a sharp protrusion standing up high. No way! Just like when fighting with Luffy, the punch she just threw just now squeezed out his pointed head again? Chapter 40. How could such a coincidence happen? Robin couldn't help but ask, could it be that the punch just now squeezed out his sunken head again? Right. Even with Ivan's relatively cold personality, he couldn't help but laugh at this moment. This is no longer something that can be described as a coincidence. Did I create a miracle? But I don't think this miracle is a good thing for us. Robin frowned as he looked at Qing Jiao, who had jumped up again. Of course it's not a good thing. In the original work, after King Jiao's head was hit back by Luffy, the two immediately became friends. But under this situation, it is impossible to settle the grudge. Qing Jiao is much more excited than in the original work. But the reason for his excitement is not just because his head has returned. Go to hell! Little devil! Qingjiao jumped into the air, his sharp head was now completely black, with the unique wave of Ba Chongchuan wrapped around it. Let me show you the secret of being able to split the precious jade iceberg. 8-punch secret dragon cone nail. Qingjiao's spinning body turned into a huge electric drill, stirring up a strong wind in the air, bringing up a tornado, and running down like a dark cloud pressing down on a city. Yvonne knew that the dragon cone nail was 2 levels higher than Qingjiao's previous moves. He could only rely on this move to open the precious jade iceberg. Otherwise, no matter how unwilling he was, he could only look at the treasure and shed tears silently. It can be said that after his brain returned to normal, Qingjiao's strength at least doubled. So. Then, I'll be serious too. Yvonne chuckled. Flesh and meridians began to grow on the body of the huge blue skeleton giant, and soon, a blue coat also covered the surface of the giant's body. Then, the dark armed color domineering also covered the surface of Susanoo at the same time, making the originally azure color turn black. Changed again? Although Robin didn't ask, she was actually quite surprised. She really couldn't understand what Ivan's devil fruit ability was. At this time, Qingjiao's attack arrived. The sharp drill bit hit Susanoo's chest directly. The armed color gave the sharp head enough hardness and attack power. The diffusion wave of the 8-punch punch could achieve internal destruction, and the rotation greatly increases the penetration of this attack. Qingjiao is confident that even if a mountain is in front of his tip, he can penetrate it directly. However, what is blocking him at this time is not a mountain, but a black giant. The tip of Qingjiao even produced a brilliant spark on the chest of Susanoo. If a handful of hay is sprinkled on it, it will definitely be ignited. However, even so, Qingjiao can't break through the giant's body at all. Although the second stage Susanoo is not as good as the third stage with armor, its defense is already quite amazing. It is not something that ordinary attacks can break through, not to mention that Yvonne has added the armed color. I've seen enough of your tricks. Yvonne sneered. The giant stretched out his right hand and directly grabbed Qingjiao's spinning body, stopping him. What? Qingjiao, who was already beaten to a bloody mess, looked even more shocked. It was useless. The moves he was so proud of were actually useless to this little kid? How could the gap be so huge? Yvonne didn't say anything, but just controlled Susanoo to throw Qingjiao into the sky with all his strength. The tremendous force directly made Qingjiao fly 100 meters high. Then at this time, Susanoo's left and right arms suddenly clasped their hands together, and then with a pull, a string of black megatama had formed between his hands. There were 4 megatama in total, and brilliant electric light was jumping on their surfaces, and they were connected to each other by erratic energy ropes. Its name is Yasaka Megatama. Yvonne uttered the name slowly. At the same time, Susanoo's right hand suddenly swung upwards, and the string of Megatamas shot out, spinning towards the falling green pepper. This is Susanoo's universal ninjutsu, which can be used as long as Susanoo activates the second stage. Although it is universal, its power is not bad. In the sky, when green pepper was falling awkwardly, he saw the flying Megatama string from the corner of his eye. So fast! There was no time to dodge. All he could do was 8 strikes. Boom! The huge explosion lit up the sky in an instant, and the blue and golden fireworks formed an extremely huge fireball, in which thunder was jumping. The ground was shaking slightly, and even a large-scale avalanche occurred on many snow-capped mountains in the distance. The strong wind swept the whole place, and even the bodies lying on the ground were blown away. Of course, this had nothing to do with Yvonne and the 2 who were protected by Susanoo. Robin looked at the explosion in the sky and pursed his lips lightly. With this kind of power, even the meteorite that Yvonne pulled down before could be blown to pieces, right? Yvonne was also quite satisfied with this. To be honest, the first stage of Susanoo may not be stronger than him personally drawing a knife to chop, but there is obviously a gap after the second stage. Moreover, the energy consumption of Susanoo at this stage is not too great, and it can maintain combat for a long time. In addition, the thunder jumped on the forearms of the 4-armed Susanoo, and finally condensed into 4 long swords of lightning. Sasuke's Susanoo can use bows and arrows in the second stage, and Yvonne can certainly let his Susanoo use his own exclusive weapons in this stage. There were only 2 swords originally, but Yvonne made 4 in one go. Then, Yvonne looked around. There were still some bandits left on the ice field, so let's get rid of them all at once. Susanoo's 4 arms swung the swords at the same time. A series of magnificent vacuum waves instantly spread in all directions like a tsunami. Susanoo no Who can use the moves of its master. This ability becomes more sophisticated when the level of Susanoo is higher, and the completed Susanoo no Who can completely replicate the master's ninjutsu. Of course, the second stage Susanoo cannot be controlled so delicately, but Ivan's swordsmanship is not as complicated as ninjutsu, which also designs changes in properties and forms. It's just a simple way to swing the sword. The third stage armored Susanoo can be used easily, and the second stage can also be used barely. That's enough. The storm instantly cleared the entire ice field, and in just a blink of an eye, all the bandits were chopped and flew to an unknown place. Only the surrounding distant peaks were left with huge cracks. At this moment, a figure fell from the sky. The green pepper that was attacked by Yasaka Megatama just now finally fell to the ground. It had almost turned into charcoal, and there was no breath left. It's finally over. Ivan breathed a sigh of relief. I wasted a lot of time. Wasted a lot of time? Robin pursed his lips. From the beginning of the war to now, it has only been a few minutes, right? So. Ivan raised his hand, and the Susanoo giant also raised his hand, stabbing the ice field with 4 lightsabers in his hands at the same time. The lightning sword easily penetrated the ice that should have been indestructible, and then, with the sudden swing of the lightsaber, dense cracks instantly spread in all directions. The ice field was completely shattered. And below, the brilliant golden light could no longer be concealed and spread. Ivan called out the ninjas and began to pick up the spoils. Chapter 41. Ivan summoned more than 100 ghost ninjas in one breath and asked them to help collect the gold and silver treasures hidden under the ice. Can it be used for storage? Robin stood beside Ivan and watched quietly, but he was also guessing Ivan's ability in his heart. After all, it was too inexplicable. The display of various abilities has nothing to do with each other. It's impossible for this man to have several devil fruit abilities at the same time. Everyone can only eat one devil fruit, this is an iron rule. It must be said that the wealth accumulated by the 8 Treasures Navy for hundreds of years can indeed be described as amazing. Hundreds of ghost ninjas also spent more than half an hour to finally send all these gold, silver, and jewelry back to the shadow space. After that, the number of ninjas to be maintained will be even greater. Otherwise, it would be impossible to move with so many treasures. Ivan sighed silently in his heart. Fortunately, from now on, if it is just summoning ninjas, the erosion of the shadow world on him is not too great. As long as he does not stay in the shadow world for too long, there will be no problem. Now that everything here has been taken care of, then Ivan. Robin said impatiently, can we go to the new world next? She no longer doubted that Ivan had the power to easily cross the calm belt. Apart from anything else, his ability to create a blue giant, even the Sea Kings would not be able to resist it, right? That's right. The next goal is the new world. Ivan's words were also full of expectations. The funds have been raised, and the next step is to officially start the action. All the actions since going to sea so far are just to pave the way for the next plan, and now, it is finally time to implement it. So, how do we get there? Robin suddenly remembered something. The ship that brought us here has been destroyed by you, right? As for ships, we have as many as you want. Ivan said with a smile, Robin, you haven't forgotten, have you? The initial bombardment. Of course, the bombardment could not have been launched by the robbers with their bare hands, as they were not all Iron Fist garb. The source of the shells was of course the cannon, and the cannon was of course installed on the ship. Ivan did not believe that such a deserted island had coastal defense guns installed. Robin understood instantly, indeed, Qing Jiao and the others could not have swam here. So. Ivan grabbed Robin's hand again, hugged the girl into his arms, and the next moment he turned into lightning and shot out. Robin had no reaction to this. Accustomed to it. Later. On one side of the coast of the frozen island. A ship floated quietly on the sea. The people on the deck were terrified. Without exception, they sat on the ground without even the strength to stand up. Because what happened just now was too terrifying. They didn't know what happened on the island at first, and stopped after a round of bombardment, because they didn't need them. Lord Qing Jiao led the team personally, would he fail? Then there were loud noises on the island, and even a huge fireball exploded in the sky. It was inevitable that everyone was afraid. Soon after that, the real fear came. The boy brought the girl across the sea, waved the blade lightly, and cut all the other ships on the sea into pieces. In an instant, the large fleet of more than 20 ships was left with only this one ship, and all the others turned into wreckage on the sea. "Something is wrong, Ivan," Robin suddenly said. "What?" Ivan looked back. He had just said he was ready to leave. "These ships don't seem to belong to the navy," Robin said, pointing to the top of the mast. "Not only are there no flags, but the clothes these people are wearing don't look like what bandits should wear." Ivan recalled that although no one approached him, the bandits on the island were indeed shabby and their clothes were quite messy. He looked at the guys on the ship again. Well, they were all wearing uniforms. "So, who are you?" Ivan walked up to a sailor and asked condescendingly. We are, the Flower Kingdom Royal Navy." The man replied tremblingly, "I am here to assist the Babao Navy on the orders of the king." "Oh." Ivan nodded slightly, "I see." He sighed and looked back at Robin. "It seems we have to make another trip." "Whatever you want," Robin said lightly. Where does he want to go after another trip? What does he want to do? The man sitting in front of Ivan was trembling, with his head down and sweating, and he dared not say a word. "The Kingdom of Flowers. The Royal Palace. The king of this country is a bald middle-aged man, who is pacing back and forth in his palace anxiously. Damn it, what is going on over there? How come there is still no news after such a long time?" The king muttered to himself angrily. "A powerful guy has come to the Kingdom of Flowers, and is looking for trouble with the navy." Qing Jiao and several other navy leaders set out immediately, and the king also sent troops to follow, because Qing Jiao said that the enemy was not simple, and the Erbao navy was completely destroyed. "But it has been almost a day now, why is there no news at all? What happened over there at Bayou Iceberg? There should be no problem, right? The 8 navy are the foundation of the Kingdom of Flowers' prosperity for hundreds of years. Whether it is foreign wars, internal repression, or plundering merchants and navy soldiers are always successful. It can be said that having 8 such black gloves is really convenient, even though they are largely parallel to the Kingdom of Flowers, not subordinate to it. I hope nothing will happen." The king prayed silently in his heart. Then, something happened. The door of the palace was suddenly kicked open, and a man and a woman walked in. What happened? There was no sound at all. The king was completely stunned at this time. This is deep in the palace. Not to mention that there are troops stationed outside the palace, there should also be guards patrolling inside the palace. How did these 2 people get in? "You are the king of the Kingdom of Flowers, right?" Ivan looked at the shocked man and asked calmly. "Who are you?" The king hadn't figured out the current situation yet, and instinctively said, "How come you are here?" He didn't finish his words. Robin couldn't help but shake his head slightly as he watched the king, who was turned into charcoal by the golden lightning before he could finish his words. "Well, now it's over." Ivan nodded gently. "Let's go, it's time to set off to the new world." Robin asked, "Is it okay? Our appearance has been exposed." "It doesn't matter," Ivan said casually. "Compared with what I will do later, this is just a small matter. It's not bad to let the world know about my existence first." Chapter 42. A ship was sailing quietly on the sea. There was nothing special about this ship in any way. It was just an ordinary sloop, equipped with only 1 cannon at the bow. However, if you could get on the deck of this ship, you could see that the people who were controlling this ship were not humans at all, but several strange beings covered in black. If an ordinary person came here, he would probably shout in horror that this was a ghost ship. But in fact, there were people on this ship. Ivan was doing his daily exercise on the deck. There were 2 huge gold nuggets. He stretched out his hands, one on each side, and kept raising and lowering them. In the back, on the side of a small table under a parasol, Robin was flipping through a book leisurely, looking very comfortable. After killing the king of the Flower Kingdom, Ivan bought a small boat at the port of the Flower Kingdom and set off. Originally, Ivan wanted to directly rob a warship of the Flower Kingdom as a means of transportation. After all, he didn't know how to sail, and he couldn't find the direction on the sea at all. But he didn't know how to sail, but Robin did. After all, Robin is a girl who has been sailing on the sea since she was 8 years old. She knows a lot of things, including navigation. She is even very good at it. After all, if she is not good at it, she can't sail on the sea alone. In this case, there is no need to go with others. The 2 of them set off on the boat and headed north towards the doldrums. As for steering the boat, of course, the ghost ninjas are responsible. Although they are not very smart, they can still control the boat if they just follow Robin's orders. Therefore, even if there are only 2 people, it is enough to perfectly control the boat. Even the ghost ninjas can steer the boat day and night, always keeping the boat moving in a certain direction. It is precisely because of this that this voyage can be considered easy. But it will definitely not be like this when entering the Grand Line. The climate and ocean currents of the Grand Line are treacherous and changeable, not to mention that the destination of this voyage is the New World, which is definitely not something that the ghost ninjas can react to. It will be harder by then. Suddenly, there was the sound of birds flapping their wings in the sky. Yvonne looked up and saw a newsbird carrying a large bag flapping its wings and landing on the small table in front of Robin. Newsbird. Robin put down the book in his hand, took out 100 Baileys and put them in the pocket in front of the newsbird, and then took out a newspaper from the big bag on its body. As the big bird squawked and spread its wings and flew away, Robin had already opened the newspaper. Immediately, Yvonne heard Robin shout, "Yvonne, there is our news." Oh! Yvonne did not stop exercising, but asked with interest, "Let me guess, is it about the Kingdom of Flowers?" "That's right." Robin nodded, "I briefly described your crime." "Offense?" "Yes, you broke into the palace of the Flower Kingdom and killed the king of that country. You are guilty of a heinous crime." "Is that all?" Yvonne chuckled. "There is another crime." Robin looked at Yvonne, "Traveling with Nico Robin, the son of Sin, the 2 are suspected to be accomplices." "That's true, we are indeed in cahoots." Yvonne laughed. "Don't laugh so quickly, this is your wanted poster." Robin pulled out a piece of paper from the newspaper with Ivan's face printed on it. "Reward, 100 million Baileys." "Only 100 million Baileys?" Yvonne frowned slightly. "You easily destroyed the 8 navy troops entrenched in the Kingdom of Flowers, and even the famous Cone Pepper was easily defeated by you. It seems that the government wants to conceal this matter." Robin said, "That's right, the navy troops are also criminal groups to the government, and they certainly won't make you famous." "Tisk, it doesn't matter." Yvonne smacked his lips, "How long will it take to reach the doldrums?" "It will take at least 2 weeks." Robin said, "The distance is not close, and our ship is not fast." 2 weeks. There are still many things to do after arriving in the New World. Although the funds are ready, before the formal implementation, we still need to find someone to help. Anyway, let's go to the New World first. Keep moving forward. Before that, the world government had already discussed the existence of Yvonne. At such a young age, he had the power to easily destroy the 8 gangs of bandits in the Flower Kingdom, even killing Qing Jiao. He was definitely not an ordinary kid. If he hadn't been hanging out with Nico Robin, he would have been a very suitable candidate to succeed Crocodile as the new Shishibukai. There are no such things as ifs. Since we are traveling with the survivors of O'Hara, we must not indulge them. The last news from the Flower Kingdom was that they sailed north. Who should be sent to deal with them? The government in the Kingdom of Flowers may not have enough power to destroy that guy, but have you forgotten that there is a Shishibukai still entrenched in the West Sea? Indeed, let Moria go. Time returns to the present. After the report on Yvonne appeared in the newspaper, people who knew him certainly reacted. "Ha ha ha ha, has Yvonne already run to the West Sea so quickly?" "In Xiaqi Bar," Rayleigh laughed while holding a newspaper. "That's really fast. The reward is only 100 million Baileys." Xiaqi slowly blew out a smoke ring. "That kid is really underestimated by the government. The government did it on purpose. The Kingdom of Flowers is guarded by several powerful bandit gangs. How can we kill the king if we don't deal with them?" Rayleigh chuckled. "But what worries me more is that Yvonne actually passed through with the survivors of O'Hara." "Yes, this is indeed more worrying." Xiaqi couldn't help but smile. "Hancock is going to be so angry." "Ha ha ha ha." Rayleigh laughed. But that was not what he cared about. "Yvonne, it seems that you are indeed heading towards the final island. 9 Snake Island. In the palace. Just as Xiaqi expected. Who is that stinky woman called Nico Robin?" The 9 Snakes Emperor was furious. How dare she follow Yvonne without permission? "I will not forgive her. I will never forgive her. How dare she get close to my Yvonne?" Then soon, she sighed with great resentment. "Yvonne, are you going to marry that shameless woman? Don't do that. Yvonne marrying someone else or something. No. I can't wait here any longer." Hancock gnashed her teeth and shouted, "Set sail! Gather the 9 snakes pirates! We're going to the West Sea!" The two sisters could only look at each other, sigh at the same time, and hurried up to stop their elder sister. "Brother Ivan, you're on your own. Somewhere in paradise. Ha ha ha, have you become famous so quickly?" Crocodile held his arm and laughed strangely, "But this is not even the beginning, right, Ivan? Ha 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 ha. I can't stand still. An island in the New World. This bastard." Annalise tightly grasped the newspaper, looking at the face on it that made him extremely hateful. Didn't he stay in the sky? Then didn't this god stay in Qinghai in vain? No, this god just wanted to take revenge on those guys called celestial dragons first. Then he immediately laughed out loud again. "Ya ha ha ha, the bounty is only 100 million? It's only 1/5 of this god's. It seems that you are just like that. Wait, when this god learns to be domineering, your doom will come." In any case, after traveling through 6 years, Ivan finally made a little wave in this world. Chapter 43. The boat continued to sail on the Azure Sea. Inside the cabin, in the simple but not shabby kitchen, Ivan was busy. He skillfully removed the heads and shells of several large shrimps, peeled the shrimp meat, and then opened the backs to remove the shrimp threads. Then he poured a little olive oil into the pot, added the shrimp heads and shells and fried them. After the aroma came out, he added boiling water to stew. During this time, Ivan also cut an onion and 2 tomatoes. Then he took another pot, poured oil into it, added onions and a little minced garlic and stir-fried them, then added the chopped tomatoes, and after frying to a certain degree, added rice and stir-fried evenly. Then he spread the rice flat. At this time, the shrimp soup that was boiling on the side was almost cooked. He poured the shrimp soup into the rice pot, and the temperature was stimulated. The aroma was already overwhelming. Ivan took out the seafood that had been processed in advance: squid tentacles, squid rings, mussels, clams, scallop meat, whatever was available on the boat, and it was not a complicated and delicate dish. Add all these things to the pot, and then add a little salt and black pepper to season. The seasoning is not too much, and the taste of many seafood is enough. Then just cover the pot and wait for more than 10 minutes, and a pot of fragrant seafood rice can be served. Although I don't know how it compares to Sanji's specialty seafood fried rice, Ivan is still very confident about it. While he was busy in the kitchen, Robin supported her chin with her hand on the dining table next to him, watching him quietly. The girl was a little fascinated. "What are you looking at?" Ivan turned around, wiped his hands with a towel, and asked in surprise, "Is it hard for you to accept that I can cook after so many days?" This time he was sailing by himself, so he could only cook by himself. Robin volunteered to cook a meal, but Ivan, who had been spoiled by his cooking skills, was indeed difficult to be satisfied with her vital signs maintenance meals. So, Chef Ivan made a solemn appearance and has cooked many meals so far. Robin smiled lightly, squinting his eyes. "No matter how many times I see it, the difference is too obvious. A knife for killing people can also be a knife for cutting vegetables. Moreover, the boy's cooking skills are not ordinary high. At least the food cooked by his hands is the most delicious thing Robin has ever seen in his life. Then you should really thank me." Ivan took off his apron and hung it on a hook on the wall. "I rarely cook for others, but you should feel honored by this, Robin." "That's really flattering, Mr. Ivan." Robin smiled and said, "Can I take a photo of this moment?" Ivan looked at the girl and couldn't help but smile. Robin's mouth also kept rising. The time was almost up. Ivan opened the lid of the pot, and the rich aroma came to the face. Each person served a plate, and a small piece of freshly cut lemon was served on the side. "Try it, Robin, Ivan's special paella. Then I won't be polite." The small cabin fell silent for a moment, with only the sound of plates and spoons colliding. Robin ate quietly and elegantly, while looking up at Ivan who was wolfing down his food. Noticing her gaze, Ivan looked up. "Why, it's not to your taste." "No, it's delicious, really delicious." Robin shook her head gently, her eyes as gentle as flowing waves. "It's been a long time since someone specially cooked for her. The last time was when her mother didn't leave O'Hara, right?" "Ivan," Robin suddenly asked, "what do you want to do?" Originally Robin was indifferent to this matter, as long as Ivan could take her to the giant kingdom. But now, she began to care more and more about it. Ivan paused. "You should know my past, right?" "Robin." Robin nodded gently. When they shared a room on the ship before, she saw it clearly, the mark on Ivan's chest that belonged to the slaves of the celestial dragons. The Tianlong people gave me a past that was extremely humiliating and painful, so. Ivan said calmly, I have to give it back to them. Since they didn't kill me, I'll kill them. Clang! The spoon in Robin's hand fell on the plate, making a crisp collision sound. Although Ivan was known to be a reckless man, when he really said this, Robin was still deeply shocked. Are you serious? Ivan. Robin put her hands on the table, no longer as elegant and calm as before, her face was pale and sweaty. That's the world government. The world government that has ruled the world for 800 years. No one has ever been able to resist them. O'Hara just disobeyed their orders and was completely wiped out. The shadow in her heart has never dissipated. The flame of O'Hara that night has always been burning in her heart. Yet. Ivan just nodded slightly. What do you mean, hey? Robin could see the nonchalant expression on the boy's face. He didn't care about his warning at all. It doesn't matter if you're scared, he said, picking up a large shrimp with a fork and stuffing it into his mouth with a satisfied look on his face. Let me help you avenge O'Hara. That's not what I'm talking about. Robin couldn't help but raise his voice. Ivan, do you understand? It doesn't matter. Ivan said in surprise, I want to destroy the celestial dragons and overthrow the world government. You want to do it? Robin was a little confused. Just because you want to do it? If you want to do it, just do it. If you are afraid of it, then why should I go to sea? Ivan said as a matter of course. Robin, will you back down just because it is extremely difficult to uncover the truth of the blank 100 years? Robin was suddenly speechless. Ivan smiled and said, you just need to watch it all. I will let you know that it is not us who should be afraid. Okay, watch. Robin pursed her lips. Looking at Ivan's firm determination, she really didn't seem so scared. The boat continued to move forward, and a week passed quickly. At this time, the boat had arrived in the northern area of the West Sea, not far from the doldrums. And on the morning of this day, Ivan! Robin exclaimed on the deck, come and see. What is that? Ivan, who was sleeping in the cabin, walked out of the cabin door sleepily, and then he didn't even need to look around. What Robin said was already reflected in his eyes. It was an island. An island floating on the sea. Or perhaps it should be said. Is that a ship? Robin exclaimed. Chapter 44. It was indeed a ship, a huge ship as big as an island. It was surrounded by high walls, and it was hard to see what was inside, but what could be seen was the thick mast in the middle of the ship that looked like a mountain, and the sails on the mast that looked like dark clouds. Is there a ship of this size? Robin's eyes widened in shock. It's really hard to imagine how such a huge ship was built. How much material and manpower would it take to build such a huge ship? Even the fact that this ship can sail is incredible enough, so can the huge sails really be blown by ordinary sea breezes? Even if the sails can be blown, can such a heavy ship really be moved by the sails? Even though he has been sailing on the sea since he was 8 years old, Robin was a little confused when looking at such a ship. Is this really not an illusion? Oh! Ivan's sleepiness disappeared, and he raised the corner of his mouth with interest. Could it be that I met someone I know again? Acquaintances. Robin was stunned. Ivan, is there anyone you know on this ship? But this is not right. Isn't this Ivan's first time in the West Sea? West Island is the first island in the West Sea where he landed. How did he get to know the people in the West Sea? Or was it someone he met on the Grand Line before? Maybe it's coming for us. Ivan thought thoughtfully. This ship must belong to Marijoa, right? Outside of the Golden City built by Tesoro, Marijoa's thriller bark is the largest ship in the world. At this time, this guy has indeed not yet gone to or returned to the Grand Line. This guy has been a member of the 7 warlords of the sea many years ago. Ivan doesn't think it's a coincidence that this guy is here. He was probably dispatched by the government. But speaking of it, I really don't understand how such a huge ship entered the Grand Line. It can only go through the calm belt, right? The canal on the upside-down mountain can't accommodate such a huge ship. But if it goes through the calm belt, it has to go through the large underwater cavity above Fishman Island if it wants to go from the New World to Paradise. So, how should such a huge ship be coated? Ivan really doesn't understand. But this kind of thing doesn't matter. Coming towards us. Robin frowned. So, not a friend but an enemy? Robin, Do you want to go to this ship and take a look? Yvonne suddenly asked. Yvonne, what do you mean? Robin was a little confused. Aren't they enemies? Why would he take the initiative to run to their lair? Let's go, there's nothing to be afraid of. Yvonne said casually, and look, the door is open to welcome us. Robin looked forward, and in front of the ship, facing them, a huge door like a tightly closed tooth opened at this time, as if it was a black hole that wanted to swallow everything. Come over! Yvonne shouted. The ninjas faithfully carried out his orders and immediately turned the ship towards the dark gate. Robin rubbed his nose helplessly, feeling a little pain in his forehead. Yvonne is a bastard who is good in every way, but he often does things his own way and never listens to others' opinions. Just like he said before, he only does what he wants to do. The boat quickly sailed into the deep door. Unexpectedly, the inside of the deep door was not completely dark. After all, there was no obstruction above, and the sunlight could shine without any obstacles. What appeared in front of the two people at this time was a wide plain area. There were even forests on it, and in the depths of the forest were the ruins of this castle. Is this really a ship? The boat came to the shore, and when the two people got off the boat, Robin once again sighed in disbelief as she stepped on the solid ground. It was absolutely no problem to say that it was an island. She was completely sure that the land under her feet was real land. She could even grow crops on it. But it's really desolate. After looking around, Robin sighed again. As far as he could see, there was no one. It was like a deserted island. There are probably even fewer people on this ship than you think. After using his observation haki to take a quick look, Yvonne smiled strangely. Really? Robin glanced at Yvonne. So, we still have to fight next. Yvonne smiled and walked forward. Robin wrinkled his nose and followed. The further they walked, the more desolate the place became. There were even graves around, and the soil on top was still fresh, obviously buried not long ago. What happened here? Robin observed these tombs and guessed, did they have a war with others before? Yvonne just smiled. She knew it immediately. As if to confirm Ivan's thoughts, the tombs around her that looked brand new suddenly began to shake. What? Robin was startled. Then she saw a hand stretched out from one of the graves. Wow! A hideous zombie suddenly stood up from the grave, baring its fangs and waving its claws. 2 rounds of flowers bloom. Catch! As Robin crossed his hands in front of his chest, 2 arms grew out of the zombie's shoulders, grabbed his head and twisted it back. Hey! It fell off. My head fell off. The zombie screamed as his neck was broken and his head fell on his back. Yvonne looked at Robin. Do we need to smash all his bones? Robin tilted his head and said something very scary with a serious face. The girl, sometimes she is a little bit dark. But what are these things? Robin looked around. Zombies broke out of the new graves around him and surrounded him with their fangs and claws. Zombies, right? Yvonne said, isn't that something that often appears in novels and stories? So, do these things actually exist? Robin was a little surprised, this world is really magical. Yvonne chuckled. Thunder leaped up from his body, and instantly turned into lightning that struck all the zombies that were close to him and flew away. The high temperature directly burned these guys into charcoal. But even so, they still stood up shakily. Could it be that they are really immortal monsters? Robin couldn't help but be surprised, there's no way to kill them like this. It's just that we need to use sea salt. The shadows inside these zombies are their true bodies. Unless the flesh is completely wiped out, they will never die unless the shadows leave. He 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 he. At this time, a strange laugh came from the sky not far away. Robin looked up and saw several translucent humanoid objects floating closer in the sky with strange laughs, black eyes and red mouths. After zombies. Robin was stunned. A ghost. Before Yvonne could say anything, a strange blush suddenly appeared on the girl's delicate face. Oh, so cute. Ivan's mouth twitched. I almost forgot that Robin's aesthetic taste was a bit weird. She preferred the ugly cute style. Is that really a ghost? The blush on Robin's face had not yet dissipated, but she still remained rational. Could it be that, like the zombie just now, it is the power of a person with special abilities? Ha 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 ha. Lady Perona is here. A little girl suddenly emerged from the ground ahead. She had pink twin ponytails, big round eyes, a crown on her head, and a pink parasol floating in the air. You must be the target of Lady Moria. You actually came to our doorstep. You mean Moria? Robin's eyes suddenly widened. Chapter 45. She said Mariah, could it be the legendary hero of the West Sea, the great pirate who once fought against Kaido, the 7 warlords of the sea, Gecko Mariah? Robin's tone was astonished. Although Qing Jiao was also famous in the West Sea, he was still far behind Mariah, one of the 7 warlords of the sea. The 7 warlords of the sea were legal pirates recognized by the government, and they were great pirates with the privilege of legal plunder. Each of them was a real monster. Is Mariah still staying in the West Sea? Didn't he go to the Grand Line? Ha 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 ha. Since you know Lord Moria's name, you have some knowledge. The girl floating in the air looked to be only 11 or 12 years old, but her attitude was quite condescending. However, you actually dared to treat Lord Moria's precious zombies like this. Lady Perona is going to teach you a lesson. Go. Negative ghosts. The little girl pointed at Yvonne and the others. The ghosts hovering in the air flew directly towards Yvonne and the others. 2 rounds of flowers blooming. Robin subconsciously used her ability. Although she was Moria's subordinate, she was not ready to surrender. However, the weird thing was that she had already locked onto the little girl, but she couldn't grow a hand from her body. Not only the little girl, but also the ghosts. The ability didn't work on them. Yvonne. There is something wrong with this child and her ability. Robin immediately shared the information she had obtained. It's as if they have no body. Her ability can make flowers bloom from any physical place. If not, it means that this thing does not exist in the real world. Yvonne was not surprised. These things are just like Perona at this time. They are all real ghosts. They have no entity and are more difficult to deal with than natural ability users. Even if they are attached with armed color, physical attacks can never touch them. But Ivan's eyes sank, and the invisible momentum whistled. Whoosh! A gust of wind suddenly blew on the plane, and these ghosts were blown straight away. Well, the impact on the spirit can work. After all, the domineering color is also a spiritual power. And Luo said that excessive domineering can resist or even remove the ability of the devil fruit. This is not something that cannot be understood. Wow! But Perona was a little confused. She was also blown away by the wind and screamed in fear. He actually bumped into her. What on earth happened? As long as her soul was not found after leaving her body, she should be absolutely invincible. Is there anything else you want to say? Yvonne looked at the shocked little girl and said jokingly. Wait. It's Lord Moria who wants to see you. You'd better follow me to see him. Perona said in panic. Lord Moria is one of the legendary 7 warlords of the sea. Don't mess around. Yvonne said with some interest. You said Moria wants to see us. That's right. Seeing that Yvonne had no intention of taking action, the little girl thought he was frightened, and she instantly swelled up again, pinching her fragile waist with both hands, and said triumphantly, feel honored. Lord Moria, one of the great 7 warlords of the sea, wants to see you. Really? Yvonne completely gave up the idea of drawing his sword. He smiled and said, it seems that I have to go and meet him. Lead the way. You are quite sensible, aren't you? Perona looked at Yvonne in surprise, then laughed, but this is natural. No one dares to resist the great Lord Moria. She was adopted by Moria since she was a child, and regarded Moria as her father and admired him very much. Come with me. The girl turned and flew away to lead the way. Yvonne. Robin tugged at Ivan's sleeve. This guy is going crazy again. They are the 7 warlords of the sea. Each one is a legendary pirate famous all over the world. It doesn't matter, it might be fun. Yvonne followed with a smile. Robin pursed her lips and felt a little pain on her forehead. She has always been seeking benefits and avoiding harm. Once she realizes there is a risk, she will never take risks. Yvonne is different. It's as if he is heading towards danger. Robin found it difficult to understand Ivan's train of thought. But at this time, she could only follow. The girl led the two into the forest and moved forward. The ship was really big. It took more than 10 minutes for Yvonne and the others to finally follow Perona to the outside of the abandoned castle. Yvonne noticed that he had basically not seen any zombies along the way, and only saw some zombies here. It seems that Moria has not started collecting zombies on a large scale yet. Yes, Hogback has not followed him yet, and he does not have the technology to create zombies on a large scale. But these things are not important now. Following Perona into the castle, he spiraled up the corridor stairs and finally came to a huge dim room. Lord Moria. I brought them back. Perona said respectfully and happily. Hey, you've worked so hard, Perona. A strange and eerie voice sounded in the darkness. In the darkness, a huge black shadow slowly sat up, and then poked its head out from the shadows. It had a long neck, a small head, pale skin, ferocious fangs, and a hairstyle like an onion. Robin held his breath at this moment. This is Gecko Mariah. He is as big as a giant. Is that you? Mariah moved forward, revealing his body in the darkness. He should still be strong, not yet the fat otaku he would be 12 years later, but he had gained weight, and his once strong neck had gradually lengthened. He looked down at Yvonne and the others with his nearly 7-meter height, Nicole, Robin, and Moria looked at Yvonne. He didn't know Ivan's name. After all, Yvonne had never told anyone his name. Yvonne. Yvonne introduced himself. Robin and Yvonne. Moria smiled, he. The government asked me to get rid of you. Robin secretly grabbed Ivan's clothes. Was he really sent by the government? Her palms were shaking slightly. So, what do you think? Yvonne asked. I think that's such a pity. Moria opened his arms with a carefree look, he. The descendant of O'Hara who studies ancient characters. And the young boy who can defeat Green Pepper at such a young age. It would be such a pity if they died like this. He lowered his head and stretched out his hands to Yvonne and the others. Become my subordinate. Become my partner. I will conceal your existence from the government. So that you don't have to worry about the government's attack anymore. Moria knew that if he wanted to become the Pirate King, he couldn't do without the 4 landmark historical texts. And the girl in front of him could interpret the historical texts. Mastering her is like getting the key. Compared with this, what are the so-called 7 warlords of the sea? Chapter 46. Do you want to invite the 2 of us to join? Yvonne was really surprised. Mariah is a person who values his partners very much. It can even be said that he is a failed version of Luffy, but more brutal and cold. But after the disastrous defeat in Wano country, when almost all of his former companions were killed or injured, Mariah has begun to reject new companions. He believes that if there are no companions, then there will be no pain of loss. So until the beginning of the plot, he only had 3 people under his command, one of whom was Perona, whom he raised since childhood. Now he actually wants the 2 of us to become his companions? But to be honest, it shouldn't be a bad thing to be Mariah's partner. He attaches great importance to his companions, perhaps not less than Luffy. In the original work, he even went deep into Blackbeard's lair alone to save Absalom, but he ended up with an unknown life and death. It's just a pity. Yvonne said calmly, it sounds good. Robin was stunned when he heard Ivan's words. What is this guy talking about? Shouldn't they just start fighting if they don't agree? It's completely inconsistent with Ivan's character. Moria, who was already smiling, looked even brighter the moment he heard Ivan's words. Really? Do you agree? But Yvonne said, prove it, Moria. Prove. Moria frowned slightly, proof of what? Of course, it is to prove that you are qualified to be my leader. Yvonne chuckled, I can't accept a weakling standing over me. Moria's face suddenly became gloomy. Hey! You! Perona, who had just suffered at the hands of Yvonne, immediately shouted, do you know what you are talking about? That is an invitation from the greatest Lord Moria. Robin had not spoken yet, but just stood silently behind Yvonne. At the same time, he sighed in his heart, it was indeed Ivan's character, this trip was indeed not good. I should have known not to board this ship. Yvonne, you should deal with the things you have caused yourself. He. Moria, who was questioned, suddenly laughed wildly like a madman, how interesting. You actually question my strength. Lord Moria. I'll help you prove it to them. Perona volunteered to float over, and with a flick of her hands, several translucent ghosts flew out, negative ghosts. With Moria by her side, she felt that she was fine again. As long as she was penetrated by these ghosts, she would instantly become extremely negative and lose her ability to fight. But stop making noise. Yvonne glared and used the same trick again, spreading out invisible spirit. The ghost coming towards the 2 was blown away directly, and Perona herself flew out again. This time was different from before. Ivan had deliberately controlled the strength of the conqueror's haki just now, but this time, he was much more serious. The 11-year-old girl had no resistance to Ivan's conqueror's haki at all. Her eyes rolled back and her body dissipated. She lost consciousness, and her ability was removed. Naturally, the spirit could only return to the body. The domineering aura of the king. Marijoa was also a strong man who had traveled to the New World and had a fierce battle with Kaido. He was certainly not unfamiliar with domineering aura. Even though his domineering aura had gradually weakened during his 9 years of depression, his eyesight was not bad. Perona was not hurt, so he was not in a hurry. It was just that. You little brat! He has mastered the domineering aura of the Overlord color skillfully, and this strength is simply not the level of ordinary people from the West Sea. No wonder Qingjiao was defeated by him. How about it, Marijoa? Ivan said calmly, want to prove it to me? How about a bet? If you are stronger than me, it doesn't matter if I surrender to you. He smiled and said, but don't worry, even if you are weaker than me, we can still try to cooperate. Cooperation? Hey, what do you want to say? Moria pulled out a huge pair of scissors from somewhere. The sharp blade flashed cold light even in this dim environment. He finally stood up. Robin stepped back silently. The next battle was not something she could intervene in. Don't you have a grudge against Kaido? Ivan was very calm, not at all solemn about going to war with a Shishibukai. It just so happens that there is something in Wano country that I must get, and sooner or later I will conflict with Kaido, so I think we can cooperate in this regard. In addition, if you really find all the road signs, Robin can also help you translate. After all, we are also very interested in the final island. Since we have already cooperated with one crocodile, it doesn't matter if there is another Moria. Moria paused and hesitated for a moment. He. You ignorant little brat, well, let me show you my power. He laughed loudly, and the scissors that were already unclear in the dim light were now covered with a layer of black. This guy can also use domineering. Ivan sighed in his heart. That's right, crocodile can still use it, so there is no way Moria can't have completely lost his ability to use it. After all, the time when both of them fell into depravity is about the same. While Ivan was thinking, the huge scissors had already fallen from the sky, and the air seemed to be torn apart. But fortunately, thinking did not affect Ivan's sword drawing at all. There was a flash of lightning on his body, and the long sword on his waist instantly burst into thunder. Very good, the bet is established, Ashina style, cross/. 2 brilliant blade lights burst out from the scabbard. Moria only heard 2 loud noises, and then the scissors in his hand hit him with great force, and his body immediately staggered back. What a fast knife! Moria's forehead was instantly sweating. When masters fight, they can detect the strength of the other party in an instant. No, you must use the observation haki. Otherwise, you can't keep up with this guy's speed. It's just that I haven't used it for too long, and now it suddenly feels very unfamiliar. Amazing power! Ivan couldn't help but exclaimed, it seems that your power has not completely faded. I don't need your comments. Moria sneered, zombies. Tear them apart for me. Yes. Master. The voices of response came from all directions. Behind the doors of the huge room, zombies rushed in one by one. Ivan roughly counted them and found that there were less than 100 of them. As expected, Moria at this stage was not able to form a zombie army. Robin, squat down. Ivan said calmly, swinging his knife without looking back. The white vacuum wave swept across the whole place in the blink of an eye, like a tsunami, instantly cutting off everything in front of it. Whether it was the zombies or the doors, windows, walls, and pillars in front, everything was cut off. Robin squatted on the ground, looking up at the vacuum wave that passed over her head, her eyes gradually becoming sharper. Ivan, this guy, is getting more and more chaotic. What if I can't react? Ivan turned around suddenly. Blocked? Ha 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 ha, what a powerful slash! Among the zombies that were chopped in half, there was a guy who stood out from the crowd. He was wearing a white kimono, a blue scarf, and had yellow hair. He held a long black sword in his hand and blocked the vacuum wave that spread from Ivan. Even if he didn't use the breath of thunder and just swung the sword casually, this blow would definitely not be something that ordinary zombies could withstand. He was certainly not an ordinary zombie. The sword god of Wano country, the man who was said to have slashed down a flying dragon, Shimotsuki Ryoma. Do you want to duel? Zombie Longma looked at Ivan and drew his sword. It was a really beautiful long sword. The blade was thick, the blade was a big reverse T-shaped blade, the blade was black and purple, with red sawtooth patterns. The big sword was 21 skills, the black sword was autumn water. Ivan raised his eyebrows. He looked down at the sword in his hand that he had spent tens of thousands of baileys to buy. Okay, take it. Ivan agreed happily, and the long sword returned to its sheath in an instant. The next moment, he was already in front of Longma with his whole body facing the thunder. Longma was obviously aware of Ivan's approach, but his body couldn't keep up. He just subconsciously wanted to swing his sword. A bright sword light had already crossed his waist, directly cutting him in two. Then a brilliant golden arc of light suddenly appeared, and his whole body was swallowed up by it. Secret, one mind. Excellent swordplay. Only one voice echoed in the end, and the zombie dragon horse had been shattered in the storm of slashing. Ivan sheathed the blade and raised his right hand. A knife circled in the air and then fell into his hand. The heavy weight passed into his hand, and Ivan casually swung it, and the air instantly made a crackling sound of being torn. Not bad. Ivan nodded slightly. Although it was just a big sharp sword, it was better than the standard long sword he had used before. Ivan looked back at Mariah, whose face had become serious, and raised the black sword in his hand. Come on, Mariah, continue. To be honest, I quite like Mariah, one of the most reliable bosses among the villains. Chapter 47. The weight of Kyushui is much heavier than the previous sabers. Because its blade spine is very thick, it uses much more materials than ordinary swords. It is also because of this that one of Kyushui's characteristics is hardness. Even if a dinosaur steps on it, it will not bend by a millimeter. Not to mention that it is a black sword, which was made by Longma using his domineering power. Indestructible is its portrayal, and Ivan immediately confirmed this. Fly across the floating boat. Ivan was dancing in the air, the black knife in his hand was as fast as lightning. Amid the clanging sound like hammering iron, Mariah's face was gloomy, and he kept waving the huge scissors to fight back. What a fast knife! What a heavy knife! Faster than him! Stronger than him! This brat! If he hadn't continued to use his observation haki, it would not have been so easy to block the attack of this brat. Mariah's leisurely attitude at the beginning was gone at this time. This was not a battle of bullying the weak. Or rather, it was the opposite. Ivan looked happy. In addition to being hard, Shushui has another function, which is to amplify the power of the slash. Even Odin's Inma has the ability to absorb and release haki. After all, it is one of the only two black swords known in the world. How could Shushui have only the characteristic of hardness? Zoro once said that Shushui would absorb the power of the other two swords and increase the power of the slash. Now from Ivan's point of view, it is better to say that it absorbs the power of the other two swords, so as to achieve the effect of concentrating the power to a point and reaching the pinnacle. Even without haki, it is enough to fight Moria. Ivan was excited, and the blade was instantly covered with a layer of haki, and the lightning jumping on his body was even more brilliant. Secret, flying vortex cloud. The blade turned into a storm in an instant, and the brilliant light directly covered Moria. So fast! Moria's not-so-big eyes widened to the limit. His observation haki couldn't keep up with the speed of this kid. The next second, Moria was chopped into meat paste by Ivan. What? Robin, who was watching the battle, couldn't believe it, so easy. That's Moria. Ivan turned his head and looked to the other side. Did he exchange places with the shadow? He. This is the shadow warrior. In the corner not far away, Mariah appeared there without knowing when. When? Robin was suddenly startled. She looked in front of Ivan. What was chopped into pieces by Ivan was actually a pool of strange black substance. Even if it was broken into noodles, it had no hindrance. At this time, it actually gathered together again and turned into the shape of the dark Mariah. Shadow? Is this Mariah's shadow? The ability to control shadows? Shadow box? Moria clenched his right hand. The shadow behind Ivan suddenly changed shape and turned into a huge box that directly covered Ivan. Ivan! Robin exclaimed. Before she could even finish her exclamation, the box of the shadow was torn apart by a knife. The whistling vacuum wave almost cut Moria in half. Fortunately, he swung the scissors in time to block the attack. Ivan walked out of the broken box leisurely. The next moment, he suddenly turned his head and swung the knife backwards. Bang! The black knife and the black scissors collided, and black lightning splashed. He. You react really fast. Boy! Moria laughed. Swapped positions again. Robin's forehead was covered with sweat. What a tricky ability. Thunder of BA. Ivan just raised his left hand, and the dazzling thunder on the back of his hand jumped, turning into a lightning spear that directly pierced Moria's chest. Success. Robin saw clearly that Moria did not exchange bodies this time, it was he who was hit. However, it's useless, useless, useless. Marijoa was still laughing, waving his sword wildly at Ivan. Ivan calmly swung his sword to meet the attack. His eyes dropped to look at Marijoa's chest. The chest that was pierced by lightning was now pitch black. It was not covered by domineering aura, but the chest turned into a shadow. I almost forgot that not only can the whole body and the shadow exchange positions, but also partial exchange is possible. In a sense, this move is a combination of Kamui and Flying Thunder God, although both are degraded versions. Marijoa attacked Ivan while exerting pressure on him, while controlling the shadow beside him, Shadow Horn Knife. The shadow not far away had sharp spikes bursting out, turning into spears that went straight to Ivan's defenseless back. These were the shadow's spears, invisible and sharp, and could easily penetrate even the tough bodies of the ancient giants. Moreover, at this time, these spears were covered with armed color domineering. The shadow was Moria's clone, and it could also use domineering. However, such sharp spears shattered in the next moment. They hit the black ribs that wrapped Ivan. What? Moria, like everyone else who saw Ivan use his powers for the first time, had no idea what kind of devil fruit ability he had. Yixin. The moment he was stunned, Ivan drew his sword like lightning, and the huge blade light directly cut Moria in half, and the walls and ceiling of the castle behind him were cut off together. Then, the sudden blade light cut Moria into pieces. But... did you attack the shadow again? Robin looked at Marijoa, who had exchanged positions with the shadow again. This guy's ability was really difficult to deal with. Ivan's attack was very strong, but it was meaningless if he couldn't hit anyone. Should I rely on speed to fight him? Robin pondered. Ivan's speed was amazingly fast. Could he hurt Marijoa in the instant when he couldn't exchange bodies? After all, even if the exchange didn't take time, Marijoa would need time to react, right? But Ivan had a simpler way. Ivan sheathed the knife, and in Marijoa's stunned eyes, the ribs covering his body expanded and grew directly to the second stage, covering his outer clothes. The next second, the golden lightning sword was held in Susanoo's left and right hands respectively. Dragon Flash. Susanoo swung his sword. A vacuum wave as mighty as a river flowing eastward instantly penetrated the wall of the ancient castle, directly cutting off a tower not far away. And there were two such vacuum waves. Ugh! Moria desperately raised the scissors, covered with armed color, and resisted the oncoming vacuum wave. But even so, he was directly knocked out, crashed through the walls of the castle, and flew into the air outside the castle. Moria gritted his teeth. Unable to exchange positions with the shadow. The shadow was also under attack. The solution is so simple, just attack the shadow and the body at the same time. A flash of lightning flashed in front of his eyes, and a figure emerged. Ivan actually caught up again. The huge giant half-body wrapped him again. I haven't seen your strength, Moria. Are you still showing mercy? Ivan mocked. Susanoo still kept one arm swinging the sword. He continuously released vacuum waves to suppress Moria's shadow in the castle, making it impossible for Moria to change positions. Little devil! Marijoa's eyes instantly turned red, and he roared immediately, finally becoming completely angry, and no longer talking about recruiting Ivan, shadow gathering place. The next second, dozens of shadows suddenly rushed into the sky from all parts of the ship, and then poured directly into Marijoa's mouth. Oh! Ivan's eyes lit up, and he finally came up with a trick. Chapter 48. Shadow Gathering Place, Marijoa's strongest move. He can directly swallow the shadows he collected into his stomach to strengthen himself. Shadow is power. In the original work, Luffy ate a lot of shadows and briefly gained a form called Nightmare Luffy. The overwhelming power made Ounce, the demon who had his own shadow, unable to fight back. And now, a bunch of shadows rushed into Marijoa's mouth like 100 rivers flowing into the sea. Marijoa's body began to expand visibly. His astonishing height of nearly 7 meters had directly exceeded 10 meters at this time. His muscles were clapping, his skin was blue, and he looked ferocious and terrifying, like a demon. Come on! Marijoa's roar at this time had already set off a gust of wind. Because of the expansion of his body, the scissors were no longer useful. He threw the scissors away and swung his giant fist at Ivan. Kara! The dark fist hit Suzanu's chest. Even though Ivan had added domineering power, Suzanu made a clear bone-cracking sound and was cracked by the man's fist. Ivan couldn't help but be surprised. The increase in strength is more than 1 or 2 times. However, what is a mere bone fracture? Even if Suzanu can be completely destroyed, it would only cost some physical strength to summon it again. In just a blink of an eye, the cracks on the surface of Suzanu had been repaired. At the same time, Suzanu's 2 heavy fists had directly hit Moria's chest and stomach. I'm hungry. Marijoa's eyes bulged out, as if he was about to vomit. Immediately, several shadows flew out of his mouth, rushed directly into the sky and disappeared. This is the weakness of this move. The shadows stored in the stomach are very easy to be beaten out. Marijoa fell like a cannonball, smashing the ground into pieces in an instant, with thick cracks spreading everywhere and smoke splashing. Ivan landed lightly. Susanoo is heavy, and even if it withstands Marijoa's punch, it is not knocked away. But it is really light, and Ivan did not feel any weight while maintaining the second stage of Susanoo. The smoke was torn apart in an instant, and Marijoa was like a fire. It pounced like a mad beast, with a huge fist coming towards him. Ivan raised the corner of his mouth, and Susanoo also swung a fist. Boom! The black fist landed on Susanoo's head, and the same black fist landed on Marijoa's chest. Then, Marijoa exploded and turned into a shadow. He switched positions again. Marijoa called the shadow back when Ivan did not continue to suppress it. However, behind Ivan, Marijoa's fist was blocked by another fist. Ivan's Susanoo has 4 arms. 2 fists against 2 fists, the terrifying power made the ground explode. Marijoa flew out again. Ivan couldn't help but stagger forward 2 steps. What an amazing power! Little devil! Marijoa roared, and he attacked again. He also knew that it was meaningless to dodge blindly. Together with the shadow, he sandwiched Ivan from the front and back, and the 4 iron fists smashed down like a storm. Ivan raised the corner of his mouth, and Susanoo's 4 fists were also clenched, and he madly fought with Marijoa and his shadow. Boom 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 boom! The earth was breaking, the dust was flying, and the air was whistling. Susanoo was constantly showing cracks, and then constantly repairing. Marijoa's shadow was constantly breaking, and then condensing again. Marijoa himself didn't know how many punches he had received. At this time, his nose and face were swollen. Even if he tried hard to suppress it, the shadow in his mouth kept flying out, and his body was shrinking. However, the speed at which Marijoa's fists weakened was far slower than that of his body. Although the shadow was fading, something was revived in Marijoa's body. Isn't this a good way to throw a punch? Ivan said with a smile, now I finally believe that you are indeed the hero of the West Sea who can fight Kaido. Marijoa's face was gloomy. Gradually falling into a disadvantage, how could he still laugh? However, the blood couldn't help but boil. At first, he was just interested and wanted to teach this kid a lesson and then take him under his command. But such calmness immediately turned into anger, because this kid was unexpectedly strong. And now, there is only humiliation and anger. The area is at the arrogance of this kid, and the anger is at his own powerlessness. But after the humiliation and anger, it feels a long-lost pleasure. This feeling of not thinking about anything, just fighting the enemy with all your strength, is really long lost. After that battle, I almost gave up fighting myself, and I always just drove zombies and shadows. And now when these zombies and shadows are useless, I can only fight by myself. It should be a frustrating situation. But why, I feel that my body and spirit seem to be burning. It's been a long time since I last saw it. Little brat! Marijoa roared in anger for no apparent reason. Nothing else mattered. He didn't want to lose to this little brat like this. And then, he lost. After Susanoo delivered another heavy punch, the last shadow in Marijoa's stomach returned to their master, and Marijoa completely recovered to his original appearance. The increase in strength completely disappeared. Even if his willpower was strong, he could not overcome the absolute gap in strength. He was completely unable to shake Susanoo. Susanoo delivered several consecutive heavy punches, causing Moria to spit blood, his eyes rolled back, his nose and face swollen, and finally he fell on his back and could not get up again. Ho ho ho! Marijoa was panting heavily, his body was like a puddle of mud and he couldn't move. Ivan had released Susanoo and walked in front of the man. It couldn't be said that he was looking down on him. With Moria's size, even if he was lying down, Ivan was not much taller than him. So, I won the bet, right? Ivan said calmly. Marijoa, who should have been furious, remained strangely quiet at this time. He knew that anger would be useless. Can anger defeat this kid? At this moment, Marijoa couldn't help but have the same doubts as Crocodile, who was beaten up by Ivan before. What on earth have I been doing all these years? How did I become like this when I was able to fight Kaido in the past? You guy! Marijoa turned his head with great effort. Do you really want to be an enemy of Kaido? That guy is a rare monster in the world. Marijoa would wake up from nightmares countless nights. The battle 9 years ago still haunts him. All of them combined could not shake the monster at all, and could only helplessly let him slaughter them. Only Marijoa escaped with his own ability. I said it before, because Wano country has what I want. Ivan said lightly. Pluto is in Wano country. If you want to get it, a conflict with Kaido is inevitable. He he he. Moria laughed, and his smile affected his injuries, and his expression immediately turned into a grin. Then what else can I say? Even if I can't get a subordinate, it's not bad to have an ally who can help fight Kaido. After all, this kid is stronger than me. It's hard to say compared to my peak period. So, now we don't have to fight anymore. Robin's voice came from the side. She followed and looked at the scene in front of her with some surprise. Can enemies really be turned into friends? Chapter 49. Robin doesn't really understand men's friendship. He 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 he. So that guy Crocodile gave up his position as Shishibukai because of you. Inside the ancient castle, a banquet was going on. Marijoa and Ivan, who had been fighting each other to death before, were now toasting each other, chatting and laughing. Marijoa had thick bandages wrapped around his body, but that didn't stop him from drinking heartily while holding a big quilt. One of the Shishibukai is missing, and the government is having a headache about it. Ivan, who was sitting next to him, said lightly, maybe he remembered his younger self again and decided to make a change. He 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 he. Marijoa just laughed out loud, and no one knew what he was thinking about. He picked up the wine glass and drank it all. Robin sat below Ivan and just watched the two of them quietly. A few hours ago, they were so eager to beat each other up, but now they were chatting happily like old friends who had not seen each other for many years. It's really hard to understand men. She ate quietly. Then she glanced at the little girl sitting opposite her, staring at Ivan fiercely with puffed cheeks. It was not until just now that Robin realized a fact that there were only 2 living people on this ship, Marijoa and the little girl he adopted. Girl. The reason why this child named Perona looked at Ivan with hatred was not because she was knocked unconscious by Ivan before, but because she could not accept that Moria lost to Ivan. When she woke up, even though she saw Moria covered with bruises, she would never believe the result of that battle. She was crying, looking at Ivan fiercely, and bandaging Moria's wounds. But unexpectedly, Moria was very generous about this failure. Robin still remembered very clearly that Moria answered Perona just now, this is a wonderful failure. That's why she said she didn't understand. Obviously, they were on edge before the fight, but after the fight, they could sit down and talk. Let's eat. Robin slowly cut the food on the plate with a knife and fork. It has to be said that this little girl named Perona has good cooking skills. Although she is far not as good as Ivan, the food she cooks is also a well-deserved delicacy. Are we heading to the New World next? Moria asked Ivan, how about I give you a ride? Send me. Ivan raised his eyebrows, you are not thinking of going to Wano country now, are you? Excuse me, it's too hasty. Going to war with Kaido now is a stupid act. It's not that there is no chance of winning. If he directly uses the power of the system to release the complete form of Susanoo, Ivan feels that he can sweep the beast's pirates alone. Kaido may have the power to fight back, but he will never be his opponent. But Ivan doesn't want to waste this opportunity on Kaido, that should be the power shown in Marijoa. Of course I Euro trademark am not that stupid. Marijoa said, if Kaido was an opponent we could defeat in a hurry, I would have succeeded in my revenge long ago. You kid, just work hard to become stronger, and I will also intensify my training to get back to the top as soon as possible. Ivan smiled when he heard this. Oh? Are you finally no longer decadent? Marijoa thought to himself, now I can't even beat you. If I continue to be decadent, then I'm afraid I won't have the chance to take revenge in the next life. However, this kid is really scary. He is only 17 years old this year, but he already has a monster-like strength. Even Kaido and Charlotte Linlin, two natural monsters, were definitely far inferior to him when they were the same age, right? Give him a few more years, and he might really be able to compete with Kaido. I said I would send you off only because I am also preparing to return to the New World. Marijoa said loudly, there is no need to waste time in the West Sea any longer. Hearing this, Ivan's eyes immediately looked a little strange. Did Crocodile say something similar before? I won't be polite then. Ivan chuckled. He had nothing to say since someone was sending him by boat. He. This kind of thing doesn't matter at all. Marijoa laughed heartily. Just as Ivan said before, Marijoa at this moment looked a bit like the original hero of the West Sea. But immediately, Marijoa said tentatively, but Ivan, I have something I hope you can help me with. Oh. Ivan raised his eyebrows, what's the matter? It shouldn't be a difficult task. On the way to the New World, can you be my sparring partner? Marijoa said, I haven't had a proper battle for too long, and my body has almost forgotten the feeling of fighting. Ivan was slightly startled. Then he nodded, of course, no problem. He. Good, very good, Ivan. I'll remember your help. Marijoa happily raised his glass to Ivan, like a big kid in his 40s. With the character of this man, Ivan believed that if he said to remember, he would definitely remember it. So Ivan also smiled and raised his glass. To be honest, he was looking forward to it. After going to sea, he experienced a series of fierce battles, Anilu, Crocodile, Green Pepper, Marijoa, although they were basically crushing games, he basically didn't even sweat. But the quality of the opponents was still very high. Ivan could feel that his domineering aura had indeed become stronger in these consecutive battles. Rayleigh was right. Haki can only improve faster in battle. The armed color has become stronger, so Ivan wondered, is it time to practice more advanced domineering skills? The entanglement of the domineering color and the observation color to foresee the future may still be a bit far away, but the flow and release of the armed color domineering should not be difficult. He also happened to need a sparring partner. The two sides can be said to have hit it off. So, this huge sea ship turned straight and headed towards north, heading towards the calm belt. But there is an episode. Because Marijoa used the shadow gathering ground to extract the shadows of all the zombies on the ship, after Ivan was defeated, these shadows have all returned to their masters. This means that no one will control the ship. After all, Marijoa had left all these things to the zombies before. Fortunately, Ivan has the ghost ninja. They can fill these gaps. When Marijoa saw the shadow warriors summoned by Ivan, he was surprised. He is the shadow fruit ability user, why does Ivan's pirated ability look cooler? He tried to study the ghost ninja, but unfortunately he didn't find anything. After all, this thing is strictly speaking a magical creation, and it is not the same school as the devil fruit. Marijoa, who was at a loss, began to spar. And the big ship has gradually sailed into the calm belt, and it is only one step away from the New World. Chapter 50. The huge ship, which looked like an island, was sailing slowly on the calm sea, leaving huge waves in the process. It landed on the high wall standing on the edge of the ship and wrapped around the entire ship. She saw a huge sea king looking over the sea in the distance. It had a head like an eagle, and a long snake-like body that entangled a sea beast. The size of this sea beast was already huge, at least 30 or 40 meters long, but it had no power to fight back in front of this hundreds of meters long sea king, and was soon swallowed up by the sea king's wide mouth. The sea king that had eaten the sea beast looked around on the sea with satisfaction. It saw the ship in the distance, but it was not interested in it. It turned its head and dived into the sea, causing huge waves and disappearing. Is this the doldrums? Robin said to himself. He had only read about this area in books before, but only after he actually entered it did he realize how dangerous and terrifying it was. There was no sea breeze or current, and the ships were propelled by manpower. The sea kings lurking under the sea will rush out of the water at any time to attack any moving objects on the sea. If ordinary ships enter this sea area, they will probably be destroyed in a short time. But this ship is different. This ship called the Thriller Bark is large enough, as big as an island, and the Sea Kings have no idea about it. The ship itself is too large and heavy to sail normally relying on the sea breeze alone, so it is equipped with a power system. Although it is not fast, it can indeed propel the ship forward in this area. Therefore, after entering the doldrums, everything is so peaceful. Boom! A loud noise came from not far away. Of course, the piece was for the outside, but it was different inside. Robin looked back. Inside the ship, on the plain not far away, there were continuous explosions like thunder. It's really endless. Robin sighed. She came down from the high wall and walked slowly to the noisy area. Two figures were colliding fiercely. One was huge, the other was short. It looked like an extremely unequal battle. But in fact, the two sides were indeed quite evenly matched. Moria wielded the huge scissors, like a storm, leaving no chance to breathe. And his opponent, Ivan, with a faint arc of electricity on his body, countered every move of Moria. The black knife Chu Shui blocked every attack of Moria. He even had the spare energy to use his speed advantage to seize Moria's flaws and counterattack. The two of them fought quite lively. Come on! Lord Mariah! Come on! On the side, Perona was trying hard to cheer for Mariah, defeat this guy. There were a lot of food beside her, so that they could replenish their physical strength immediately after the two of them finished fighting. Robin stood aside and watched this scene, sighing in his heart. Mariah probably did his best. But Ivan was obviously just sparring. He didn't even use his move of using lightning to amplify himself seriously, let alone the move of summoning energy giants. However, Mariah was indeed getting stronger quickly, or recovering. This kind of sparring has lasted for several days, and the two of them would fight for most of the day every day. At the beginning, Ivan only used domineering to fight with Mariah, who didn't use his abilities. Asia confrontation. As of today, arcs of electricity have begun to jump on his body. Robin saw very clearly that Mariah had indeed undergone tremendous changes. The most obvious proof is that this guy has become thinner. His physique is rapidly getting stronger day by day. Strength and speed are improving. According to Ivan, his domineering aura is also getting stronger. However, Mariah also said that although Ivan's physical changes are not big, his domineering aura is getting stronger every day and is breaking through to a new stage. After almost destroying the surrounding ground, Ivan and Mariah finally stopped and sat down to rest for a while. Lord Moria! The food is ready. Perona immediately brought the food over. Thank you for your hard work, Perona. Moria gently touched the little girl's head, and Perona immediately showed a happy expression. They are really like a father and daughter. Cool. Moria was sweating all over, but he picked up a glass of wine and drank it all in one gulp with a smile on his face. He. It feels like my old self is coming back little by little. Then you'd better hurry up. Ivan leisurely took a towel from the ghost ninja. My training is almost complete. A higher level of armament haki. Mariah's expression became serious. Is it really okay to teach me this move directly? It's not something special. Ivan also picked up a large chicken leg from the food sent by Perona and bit off most of it. If you can become stronger, won't it be better for you to conquer Wano country? He. Moria laughed loudly. At this moment, Ivan suddenly felt a breeze blowing across his face. He looked up and saw the huge sail above him fluttering gently. It seems that we have arrived in the new world. Moria also looked up and grinned. I haven't been back for 9 years. He. There is no time to waste. After eating a few bites to replenish his energy, Moria took a straight step and ran away. This guy has completely changed after the battle that day. He went from a lazy dog to a curler and worked hard every day. Ivan couldn't help but smile. He is also an interesting guy. Suddenly, someone stood in front of him. Ivan looked up and it was Perona. The little girl looked at him shyly. Ivan also looked at her. Thank you. Perona suddenly bowed to Ivan. Ivan was a little confused. Thank you for making Lord Moria so happy. Perona looked up. I have never seen Lord Moria so happy. He thought you were here. Really? Ivan chuckled. But don't get carried away. After thanking her, the little girl immediately returned to her original appearance, put her hands on her waist and said loudly, Mr. Moria is the strongest. He will surpass you soon. Robin standing aside couldn't help laughing. Maybe. Ivan smiled, but Perona, remember. What? The little girl blinked. Don't die. Yvonne said. Absalom is probably still in the West Sea, and Moria probably has no intention of conquering Hogback now, so you are probably his last and only companion. I won't. Are you cursing me? The little girl was furious. Yvonne laughed. Anyway, the new world has arrived and the time of separation is not far away. A few days later. Ugh! Moria groaned, and was knocked out. But he immediately turned over and said in surprise, it's done. Yvonne lifted Chu Shui up, placed it flat on his chest, and nodded gently, it's done. The purple-black blade was covered with a layer of dark domineering, and outside this layer of domineering, there were invisible waves flying.